The blonde girl told her interlocutor that he had to kill someone. The shocked guy looked at her silently. She whispered that he had only 1 hour to do all this. With a stern expression on her face, she said that he must either die or kill. The girl coldly declared that if he did not do this, his soul would be destroyed forever. On a very ordinary day, a loud noise was heard on the road. A truck hit a man. The guy was sure that he died that day. He believed that all people, when they die, cross the Sanzu River wearing white clothes. However, he did not understand why they had to do all this together even after death. This guy's mentor said that, presumably, life after death does exist. And then it clearly shouldn't be like what they saw at the moment. Standing in a large queue, the guy was dressed in white, like many other people. He looked at another man in white with great interest. He looked up and thought that he was indeed dead. This thought made him grin. He scratched his head and said that in that case, he would never have thought that he would die so young. He left the line and started looking around. Actually, he always tried to keep his distance from others, and besides, he always had a very bad atmosphere at home. Suddenly, he heard someone screaming in the background trying to stop the fight. The guy turned around and saw a crowd of men kicking another person. He was surprised that even after death, people behaved this way. He thought that he had never fought before, but there was nothing holding him back, because he was already dead. He ran up to one of the men and swung his leg. The guy decided he wanted to try something he would never have thought of doing in life. The boy kicked the man, causing him to fall to the ground with a loud thud. The angry man turned to the boy and asked what the teenager was doing. In response to this, he only raised his leg, which scared the man. The next moment, he stepped on him, and the man was knocked out. After a few moments, the comrades pulled the man by the legs, wanting to escape. After watching for a while, the guy turned to the one they were kicking. He asked if the man was okay. The stranger thanked him and asked the name of his savior. The boy smiled and said his name was Hikaru. The man said he looked quite young. In response, Hikaru said that he was 15. The man was surprised that he was saved by a guy who was 3 years younger than him. The man put his hand into his clothes, wanting to pull something out. He handed Hikaru a small bag and said that he was giving it to him as thanks. Looking closely at the bag, Hikaru said that he had seen the same thing on others. The man assumed that the boy had it too, but he would have to look for it. Hikaru asked the man as he walked away if he could really take it. The man waved and said that it was all he could do for the savior. He said goodbye to Hikaru and said that maybe they would see each other again. Suddenly, the man who was watching his picture said that he was lucky. An extremely tired-looking man with blonde hair turned to Hikaru and asked if the boy could listen to him. Hikaru immediately noticed the unusual appearance of the interlocutor and assumed that he was a foreigner. The guy asked what happened. Hikaru didn't quite understand why, but he suspected something, because this stranger was wearing different clothes. The man said that he didn't have much time, so he would be brief. He stated that he wanted Hikaru to go to the world where this man came from and live there in his place. Hikaru was very surprised, after which he asked what the stranger wanted to say. In response, he briefly said that he would soon die. He lifted his shirt, and instead of skin, there was a black hole. Hikaru closed his eyes and tried to figure it out. He asked if they weren't in the place that was the afterlife right now. Hikaru said that meant they were both already dead. The stranger said that he was from another world. He used the skill of moving between worlds, and it brought him to this place. Hikaru did not understand what the man was saying at all. The man raised his transparent hand and said that he wanted to explain himself, but there was not enough time. He loudly shouted his request for Hikaru to go to his world and grant the man's wish. He said that if Hikaru succeeds, he will be able to return to life. He stated that the boy will be able to revive. Hikaru was speechless. The next moment he asked what the man was saying. He didn't believe it. It sounded crazy, but he was already dead, so he had nothing to be afraid of. The stranger said that Hikaru would be able to live as he wished, but only if he fulfilled his request. Hikaru swallowed hard and said there was one but. He asked what the price of such a wish was. He said that the unknown person asked him to fulfill this wish, so he wants to know what he wants if he is ready to bring the guy back to life. The stranger said he would explain when they were already there. Hikaru was surprised. The man extended his hand and apologized, saying he was in a hurry. He smiled and asked Hikaru to believe him, because the boy was not in any danger. The next moment, he said that he agreed and would go to the stranger's world and listen to what he had to say. The man immediately thanked Hikaru. The guy thought that he was also interested in what was going on in other worlds. The stranger said that he was currently using the skill of moving between other worlds. At that moment, he remembered and said that his name was Roland Nui Zarak. After that, he added that he would give Hikaru his body. Everything around them sparkled. After some time, Hikaru woke up in a dark room. He thought that his whole body was warm, and he felt his arms and legs. The guy mumbled something, then heaved himself to his feet. He walked slowly to the mirror. Looking at his reflection, he was amazed to think that he had actually been reborn. Suddenly, his head began to ache terribly, filling with memories unknown to him. Suddenly, Hikaru realized that all of these were Roland's memories. The guy sighed heavily and realized that everything was exactly as he thought, and in fact, he was Roland. Suddenly, Roland himself appeared behind Hikaru. The guy threateningly declared that Roland had deceived him. Roland raised his hands and said that it was not so and he did not lie to him. Hikaru exclaimed and said that it did not matter, and then demanded answers from Roland. Hikaru asked Roland why he wanted Hikaru to kill the man. Roland's gaze instantly turned cold. He said that Hikaru was completely right and Roland wanted the boy to kill Count Morgstadt. He is a key figure among the corrupt aristocracy whose affairs he wanted to expose, but the Count killed Roland's parents and then ordered Roland himself to be killed. The guy managed to convince the Count by using a soul-draining stone in exchange for a large part of his soul. In about an hour, Roland will die completely. He said that therefore he must kill the Count before that happened. He stated that if Hikaru did not do this, he would reject the boy's soul. Hikaru glanced at him and said that he did not like all this. Roland exclaimed that there was no other way, and leaving the Count alive would be a mistake for the kingdom. He changed his wording and said that it would be a mistake for all of humanity. Hikaru sighed and said that he couldn't refuse. He thought that if Roland rejected his soul, he would have nowhere to go and would simply disappear into oblivion. It didn't matter if he screamed, he only had 1 hour left, so he simply had no other choice. He slowly picked up the dagger from the floor and agreed to the proposal. Hikaru came out and said that he would help Roland in exchange for his life. Roland said that's why he had a gift for Hikaru. The boy asked in surprise what kind of gift it was. Roland said that he had it since he was a child. Roland said that Hikaru should concentrate now. The boy asked in surprise what the man was talking about. He tried to concentrate, following Roland's words. At that moment, a small window appeared in front of him. Hikaru looked forward in shock and asked what it was. Roland calmly said that it was Hikaru's characteristics. The boy asked if it was normal at all. Roland said that he only had a little bit of strength left, so he would tell Hikaru what to do while he was still there. Hikaru tried to say something after Roland, but the next moment, he was no longer there. Hikaru sighed heavily, when suddenly something informed him that he only had 55 minutes left. Hikaru was very surprised that it was already 5 minutes. He raised his hand to the window and thought that he needed to get ready, because he had to be ready for anything. Suddenly, the system window asked the guy if he wanted to unlock the soul panel, and then said that it would cost 1 attribute point. Hikaru was a bit confused because he didn't understand what unlock meant, the cost, and what it was. The guy said he wanted to unlock the soul panel. The next moment, the system window lit up brightly. The boy asked in surprise if this was a skill bar. In the skill system the boy had seen in games, he could spend skill points to gain certain skills. He thought that meant he could spend points and become stronger. He noticed that the starting value had dropped to 14. Hikaru guessed that he had 15 points because he was 15 years old. He decided to move on to his main objective. His objective was to kill a human, which meant he had to approach him carefully. The guy noticed that none of these skills increased his agility. He suggested that maybe he had other skills. He waved his hand to the side and noticed that the screen had changed. He thought maybe this would be more useful to him. Hikaru continued to flip through the pages one by one, but each one was locked. It was exactly as he thought, and this window was something like a tablet. Hikaru noticed that there were a total of 7 screens showing the person's life abilities. He didn't know exactly what the other screens could do, but he'd have to spend 6 points to check. The system told him he had 45 minutes left. Hikaru thought that he didn't have time for this, so he better unlock them right away. The first window was magic. He wasn't sure if he could use magic in this body, so he thought it would be best to leave that for later. Next was strength. He thought it might come in handy, but close combat wouldn't be very suitable right now. Next came the agility points. At that moment, the guy noticed what he needed: stealth. The system asked Hikaru if he wanted to unlock the skill, and then said it would cost 1 point. The boy was surprised that it was a skill that could only be unlocked. Hikaru noticed that some skills were labeled and some were not. He thought that if they were not labeled, they were skills that could not be unlocked. Hikaru decided to unlock 3 skills at once. Now he could detect life, magic, and scent detection. He had lost quite a lot of points due to his spending, and now he only had 10 units left. He thought that now he needed to distribute them too. He thought that there would definitely be guards in that place, so he would put 1 point into life and magic power, and put perception to the maximum values. As soon as he did this, he noticed that another skill had been revealed to him, which amazed him. Hikaru's face turned pale when he saw the skill Assassination. When using the skill, if he remains undetected by the enemy at the time of the assassination, the attack is guaranteed to be lethal. Hikaru thought that this was just what he needed. The maximum value for this skill was 3 units, and he only had 3 points left. He sighed and said that he would take it, because it would probably be the best choice. But if he wanted to live peacefully in this world, then he would have to kill the Count. Suddenly, Hikaru noticed that after unlocking Assassination, another skill appeared. He looked in surprise and noticed that it was Sniper. This is exactly what he needed. He sighed and said that he didn't have the points for that right now anyway. The system told him that there were 35 minutes left. The guy stood up and said that first of all he needed to try out his new skills. At that very moment, Hikaru activated his stealth, not noticing any outward changes. Hikaru wondered if the skill had worked. He looked at his hands and thought that he had a feeling that he had simply disappeared. Roland urged the boy to hurry, since there were only 35 minutes left. Hikaru replied that he already knew about it. The boy went out into the corridor, thinking that, according to Roland's memories, the Count should be in the city now. He walked out and calmly left his keys at the reception. The employee noticed the keys appearing out of nowhere and started looking around trying to find the owner. At that moment, Hikaru walked out of the building. There was a heavy thunderstorm outside. Hikaru, tired from running, went under the roof when the system announced that there were only 25 minutes left. Looking around, Hikaru noticed that the back door was closed. He decided that he would have to go through the front. At that moment, 2 nobles came out of the building, talking heatedly about what kind of clients they had. Hikaru held his breath, and as the nobles passed by, he thought that he seemed to have been overlooked. He walked on, thinking that he couldn't believe that he had walked so openly in front of them without them noticing. This skill had turned out to be even better than he had expected. The further the guy walked, the more people he met along the way. But no one noticed him. On the way, he heard one of the guards point out that someone had left wet footprints. Hikaru turned pale. The second guard said it was normal because it was raining outside. The first asked if anyone had come in or out recently. The second one replied that they were probably people from the Alchemist Guild who had come to teach their daughter something. The first one agreed and they went ahead. After that, Hikaru was able to breathe a sigh of relief and step forward, thinking that he was almost found out. He noticed that the stealth had worked. As he ran down the hallway, the system said there were 15 minutes left. Suddenly, Hikaru noticed that only one room had a light on. Hikaru crept up to the door and listened. He heard someone talking about how the Baron was just a fool. Hikaru recognized the voice and knew that it was the one he was supposed to kill. At that moment, Hikaru tensed up. He understood that if he opened this door now, he would kill a man. With trembling hands, the guy did not dare to take hold of the door handle. He tried to calm himself down, thinking that everything was okay and he could do it, but he kept shaking. Suddenly, he squeezed his hand tightly and thought that anyone could easily die remembering their own death. In this world, one could die in the blink of an eye. Kill or be killed. Those were the rules of this world. While he was thinking, the system reminded him of itself, saying that there were 10 minutes left. The Count sat quietly at the table, reading papers. Suddenly, the door to the room creaked. The man looked up and asked who was there. Hearing no answer, he looked back down at the papers. The Count said out loud that his imagination seemed to be running wild. At that moment, Hikaru was already standing behind the man. The Count continued reading his newspaper. He said that whatever the case, the Zarok family was finished, and now he would have more free time, because both father and son were extremely annoying. Something happened in Hikaru's head at these words. and he replied that the Count was mistaken. The surprised man turned around and asked who was standing behind him. When Hikaru came to, he didn't understand what was happening. Roland knew Zarak had taken over his body and was speaking for the boy. Hikaru didn't understand what Roland was doing. Roland apologized and said that he wanted to kill the Count with his own hands. At that moment, the man began to back away. Roland pulled out his dagger and shouted that he would kill the Count, to which the man screamed in fear. Looking at Hikaru, Roland added that he didn't want the boy to be tormented by thoughts that he had killed a man. Roland ran forward, wanting to kill the Count. At this time, the man took something out of the box, wanting to protect himself. As Roland ran, he began to lose his balance and his eyes darkened. He realized that this was his limit and he could not stand it any longer. Hikaru grabbed his shoulder and told Roland not to underestimate the Count. Hikaru began to take control of his body. The boy exclaimed that Roland shouldn't underestimate Hikaru either. The guy ran towards the Count with a dagger, saying that he was ready for this. With a quick movement, he plunged the dagger into the man's stomach. He spun it, after which the Count coughed up blood and fell to the floor, exhausted. Hikaru was breathing heavily as he looked at the dead body of the Count. His hands were shaking. Roland said he found it hard to believe, but Hikaru did it. The boy asked if Roland had really wanted to kill himself from the very beginning. To this, the aristocrat answered in the affirmative. He thought it would be better for Hikaru. The boy stopped and asked Roland if this meant they were now accomplices. Roland smiled silently. Roland closed his eyes and thanked Hikaru. He said that he had nothing to lose now. No money, no power, and now this body belonged only to Hikaru. Roland asked if he could know the name of his hero. After that, Hikaru introduced himself. Roland thanked the boy and said that his name and memories would now remain with him forever. Disappearing in sparks of light, he said that from now on, he will always pray for Hikaru. Therefore, only a bright future awaits him. After Roland got upset in the air, Hikaru came to his senses. He was amazed that he actually did it now. Suddenly, the boy heard someone behind him ask if he had killed the Count. Hikaru turned around in shock, wanting to see the source of the voice. At the door, the guy saw a girl who silently watched as Hikaru stood over the body of a dead man. The girl had nice silver hair and was dressed neatly in a sleep dress. Looking at her, Hikaru thought that this girl was incredibly beautiful. Suddenly, the girl said that the bell was ringing, which meant that they were coming here. She was right, and at that moment, the guards ran into the room. Hikaru wondered if it could be connected with the bell that the Count had rung before he died. Hikaru quickly looked around, thinking about what he should do. He supposed that he could use stealth and escape that way. In his moment of panic, the girl raised her hand and pointed to the door. She said that there was a rope ladder on that balcony, so the guy could use it to get down. Hikaru looked at her doubtfully, wondering if she was lying. He didn't understand how she could talk about something like that without even knowing who the guy was. Suddenly, the girl exclaimed, saying that the guy should hurry up. Hikaru agreed and said that he was already leaving. As soon as he left the room, he actually saw the stairs. The guards began to ask Miss Louvière what she was doing there. They asked if it had anything to do with the Count ringing the bell. After that, they saw the man lying on the floor. Having climbed out onto the balcony, the guards announced that the Count was dead. At that moment, only a ladder was hanging from the balcony. Noticing this, they gave the order to run downstairs, because the murderer should still be on the first floor. While Miss Louvière looked at the floor, the guards hurried to leave the room. At that moment, Hikaru stood in a field decorated with gravestones. He was trying to catch his breath, saying that he had run far enough, so everything should be fine. Feeling safe, Hikaru sat down on the ground and began to breathe deeply. All he could think about was how incredibly tired he was. Suddenly, the boy remembered that girl and wondered why she let him go. In another world which already seemed impossible, the feeling in Hikaru's right hand was heavy. He felt the weight of his sins. Several days have passed since the Count was killed. Hikaru became an adventurer in order to survive. In order to earn a living, Hikaru became an adventurer. Another reason was the free guild card, which can serve as an ID in this world. And now Hikaru was on a quest to collect as many small, glowing, poisonous flowers as he could. As Hikaru walked through the forest, he was able to find some unusual flowers. Suddenly, he heard the bushes rustling behind him. The guy thought that on such a mission, it was always worth being on guard. The next moment, someone jumped out from those bushes, ignoring Hikaru. The boy was able to breathe a sigh of relief when he saw that it was just a wild boar. Hikaru had time to get scared. When the boy thought that the danger had passed him, he suddenly heard a roar. The amazed boy turned around and saw a monster of incredible size in front of him. Hikaru realized that a large green wolf was standing in front of him. According to the guild, they always stay in a pack and are very cruel. They can smell their prey from quite a distance, which makes them even more dangerous. And of course now Hikaru found himself surrounded by these monsters. As soon as the boy tried to act, he noticed that the wolves were busy with the boar. He watched them eat the boar in silence. Hikaru thought that the wolves didn't seem to notice him at all. He opened the screen and thought that he was still amazed at this incredible blessing. His guild card, which he opened, had his name written on it. Blessings are given according to the soul panel, and it can be changed in the guild card. This is something like a power-up in games that improves certain skills, thus making the gameplay easier. Hikaru currently had the blessing of the god of stealth activated. As someone with the stealth skill, this blessing was perfect for him. None of the wolves will even realize that Hikaru is here. With deft movements of his hands, he quickly collected the flowers he had originally been looking at. The guy looked into the small bag and said that this would be enough. When he finished collecting, he calmly turned around and walked towards the exit from the forest. At this time, a rather noisy event was taking place in the guild. A crowd of men had gathered at the entrance and were asking a girl named Fleur if she had a boyfriend. The men argued with each other, wanting to ask Fleur out on a date. At this time, the girl smiled awkwardly, trying to answer them politely. Suddenly, Hikaru entered the guild, and Fleur immediately noticed him. The men who had been arguing a moment ago were confused, as they did not understand where Hikaru had come from. Fleur worked in the guild, and she helped Hikaru get his guild card. The boy told Fleur that he wanted to take on a new task. The girl sighed and looked away from the men. Suddenly, one of them asked him to wait. The guy realized that this Cherninko was probably going to do something to him. Looking at his system window, Hikaru was thinking about what to come up with. Suddenly, the guy's eyes fell on his detection skills. Hikaru reminded Cherninko that he was an adventurer, so he didn't understand why he was standing there wasting both his own time and everyone else's. He asked why Cherninko didn't take the mission. The man was about to start a conflict when he was suddenly stopped. Cherninko asked his friend what was wrong. After that, they both stepped back and started talking about something. A few moments later, Cherninko turned around slightly and said threateningly that he would remember this to Hikaru. The boy immediately realized that this was not the end. While the men were leaving, Fleur turned to Hikaru. The girl asked worriedly if Hikaru would be okay. The boy asked what was wrong. Fleur said that she thought provoking them was a bad idea. Hikaru said that she shouldn't worry because they didn't seem that strong. Fleur exclaimed that they weren't. The girl told him that Cherninko was famous in the guild for his physical strength. Hikaru was surprised. She said that Cherninko had the blessing of a warlike master of one-handed swordsmanship. Hikaru asked if that meant he had a good blessing. He asked if this meant that Cherninko could use the skills of the five-word god. Fleur confirmed this and said that it was a very strong blessing. Hikaru tensed up at Fleur's words. He suddenly remembered that when he was given his guild card, they said that the number of words determined the rank of an adventurer. 4 words mean high rank, 3 means rare, 2 means legendary, and 1 word means mythical. Suddenly, the boy thought about his blessings. In general, he received new blessings in addition to the blessings he already had after he killed the count. Fleur asked the boy if something was wrong. The girl asked if it was possible that Hikaru was scared. The guy looked away and said that he was thinking about something else. He decided that it was better not to spread the word. The guy remembered the reason for his visit and said that he had completed the task. After Hikaru put the bag on the table, the girl said that she was sure it was a mission to collect glowing poisonous flowers. Hikaru said that was all he had collected. The girl was surprised. She asked if he'd collected the entire bag himself. Hikaru asked what was wrong. He wondered if he had done something wrong. The guy said that was all there was. He asked if they weren't supposed to be taken out that easily. The girl said that this was not true, after which she reminded him that in places where these flowers grow, as a rule, there are a lot of large green wolves. She asked if it was possible that there weren't any of those creatures there this time. Hikaru said that there were. The girl asked in bewilderment. If they were there, then why didn't they attack him? She didn't understand. Suddenly, she said that she understood, and Hikaru was just lucky. The boy smiled and said that it seemed so. He thought it would be better to leave things as they were. He said that in that case, he expected a reward. A few moments later, Fleur thanked Hikaru for waiting. She put a bag full of coins on the table and said that it was Hikaru's reward. The boy was surprised at how much money he received. He thanked Fleur sincerely, to which she smiled. When the guy was about to leave, the girl stopped him and asked if he was already going home. Hikaru said that he still had some time and he could discuss the new task. Fleur smiled widely. The girl said that in that case, if Hikaru wanted it, she could find a more suitable task for him. The guy asked if she was sure. He blushed and looked away. The girl said she agreed. She asked Hikaru to wait for her a little longer. The boy thought that he now understood why adventurers came to this place to see her, and Hikaru kept thinking about what had happened. Several days had passed since the Count's murder, but he hadn't heard anything about it. Was everything okay with the girl who saved him? After some time, a joyful Fleur returned. She saw that Hikaru was looking at her intently and, blushing, asked what he was doing. The guy asked Fleur if she had heard that someone important had been killed. After this question, the girl froze in place. Fleur came closer and whispered that this was classified information and only a couple of people in the entire city knew about it. She asked Hikaru where he heard about it. The guy realized that the authorities had classified the case. He said that he was not exactly sure of the source. He said that since Fleur knew about it, there must be other adventurers involved. The girl said that was unlikely. She said that people from the government came and asked about the newcomers to the guild, and they also said to conduct an investigation to see if any of the adventurers were involved in his murder. The girl whispered that it was all top secret. After that, Fleur immediately took out the papers and said that it was time for them to get to the main thing. She said that these were the most suitable tasks for Hikaru. The guy asked what kind of tasks they were. The girl proudly declared that these were tasks personally chosen by a professional registrar, Fleur. Hikaru took one of the sheets of paper with assignments, after which he thanked the girl for her work. Fleur was very surprised by these words. The girl suddenly said that Hikaru was a little different from the others. I was surprised. Fleur said that adventurers rarely thank for such things. Hikaru was very shocked by this information. After that, the guy said that he was just grateful to Fleur for her work. He added that he had never been treated like that before. Hearing this, the girl blushed deeply. She said that if there were more good adventurers like Hikaru, this job could be enjoyed every day. The guy asked if Fleur had said anything because he hadn't heard her well. In response, the girl said that she hadn't said anything. Suddenly, she asked what kind of task Hikaru would take. Looking at the papers, the guy thought about it. His tasks included cleaning, shopping for the church, repairing the roof, unloading coal at the forge, and talking to the elderly residents. While Fleur was waiting for an answer, Hikaru suddenly apologized and said that none of the tasks were suitable for him. After some time, Hikaru was alone in the field, searching for the red-horned rabbit. He remembered Fleur explaining that red-horned rabbits had high perception and were very fast, making them extremely difficult to defeat. Suddenly, Hikaru noticed one such rabbit on the ground. The animal was quietly digging around in its hole while Hikaru silently watched it. The boy waved his hand in front of the rabbit's face, but the animal didn't notice anything. Thanks to his stealth skill, they couldn't sense him at all. He thought that this task was perfect for him, because it didn't matter how many. The main thing was to catch as many as possible. The boy took a dagger from his belt. He folded his arms and thought that he didn't want to kill again, but he had no choice. After Hikaru performed the prayer, he quickly killed the animal and took it with him. Suddenly, Hikaru felt energy and power playing around him. In this world, if you kill any creature, your soul level will increase. Hikaru realized that he had just increased his level. He thought that if he had this power, then it meant that there was definitely someone in this world with the same power. The guy summed up that he gets points by leveling up, and he also saved up points. But he didn't know what to do with them. He wanted to distribute them, but he didn't know where exactly yet. He decided to think about it later, but for now he could return to the guild. After some time, he found himself on one of the city's streets. He thought that thanks to his stealth, he was able to complete quite a few tasks. Right now, his goal was to earn enough money to live. After that, he planned to wait until the commotion over the Count's murder died down. Suddenly, he heard someone gossiping. While walking, the guy saw people in military uniform. He assumed that they were patrolmen. At that time, the men were discussing whether the case had already been solved. One of the men said that according to the information he had received, they had already found Count Morgstadt's killer. Hikaru was speechless. Hikaru thought about how, according to the gentleman on patrol, Count Morgstadt's killer had been caught. However, it was impossible, because it was Hikaru who killed him. He wondered who the authorities had caught in that case. At that moment, someone was trying to call the boy. The girl asked if he was even listening to her. Hikaru apologized to her and asked if she could repeat what she said. The girl started scolding him, asking if he really wasn't listening to her again. She asked him again if he was listening to her, then said that it would take time to evaluate this red-horned rabbit. Hikaru asked why that was. The girl was about to answer him when suddenly the old man said that it would take time, as they had to balance to do better than the Guild of Alchemists and Apothecaries. Fleur greeted Unkin happily, who began examining the rabbit. The man said that it was rare to find such a well-preserved horn. The man said that there was nothing that matched its market value. Hikaru asked Fleur who it was. The girl hesitated. Suddenly, the old man looked straight at Hikaru and said that he was just an appraiser. Hearing this, the boy thought about it. Hikaru opened Unken's system window. At that moment, the old man said that he would take the rabbit. Reading the characteristics, the boy was a little worried. Noticing Hikaru's gaze, the man asked if the boy wanted to ask something else. Hikaru said that it wasn't. After that, he wondered if that could really be the case. He noticed that this old man was very strong. His skills were similar to Hikaru's, but he had higher-level abilities such as mass resolution. As Hikaru flipped through the pages, he thought that it was possible. This old man Unkin had collected all 7 soul boards. Knowing the man's abilities in the soul boards, Hikaru assumed that he was the guild master. Unkin noticed this look and said that Hikaru was looking at him as if he was some kind of target. The boy waved his hands and said that it was not as Unkin thought. He smiled and said that he was just wondering how long it would take. The man said that he was wondering how long it would take for him. The man said that Hikaru would find out for himself in the evening. The boy thought it would be quicker than he thought. Fleur said she would leave it to Unkin, for which he was grateful. The guy was surprised and asked if Fleur had already finished her work for the day. The girl confirmed this and said that she was free for the rest of the day. Hikaru noted this. The girl asked if he really wanted her to help him with something. Suddenly, Hikaru said that he wanted to ask Fleur a personal question, and then asked if she had time for it. The girl was surprised, after which she blushed very deeply. After some time, Hikaru walked around the city. The boy thought about what he had been told earlier, that the Travelers Guild had received an invitation. He wondered if Fleur might know something about it. Suddenly, the boy noticed that someone was following him. He turned around and quickly noted his supposed pursuers. Hikaru realized it was Chernenko. He quickly realized that the man was probably going to do something to him. He opened his system window and wondered what he could come up with. At that moment, his detection skills caught his eye. Now Hikaru could sense Chernenko's intentions without even having to look at him. However, it extended out to 10 meters. Hikaru grinned at his pursuers, then walked into the alley. The men noticed that the guy had entered a dead end, but Chernenko ordered him to go. They all drew their weapons, but were surprised and angry that there was no one there. They wondered where Hikaru could have gone. At that moment, the guy was standing right in front of Chernenko. While the men were trying to find him, Hikaru was leaving, thinking that he was a little busy for that right now. After some time spent searching, Hikaru found himself in a small cafe. He thought that he had come to the right place. He wondered if he was dressed properly for this. Suddenly, someone thanked him for waiting. Fleur, in the cutest dress, apologized for being so late. Seeing the girl, the guy involuntarily blushed. Fleur tried to call out to Hikaru, causing him to scream a little scared. He apologized and said that he was just not used to seeing her out of shape. Hikaru also added that Fleur looked great. The girl thanked him and blushed. They were sitting together at a cafe table on a clear day. Hikaru said he wanted to ask her a question. The girl tensed up. Hikaru said that it was nothing serious. He just needed to know the truth. That's why he wanted to ask Fleur a question. The girl was a little upset because she realized that Hikaru didn't just decide to treat her for no reason. She put the cutlery on the table and said that everything was fine. With a very upset look, she said that she was just a person who gave out useful information to newcomers. Hikaru was amazed by this and said that he would buy Fleur whatever she wanted to eat. The girl sighed and agreed, then pointed to something on the menu and said that she would take it. Hikaru immediately agreed. The girl asked again as she was sure she could take it, to which the guy answered positively. Fleur turned around happily and said that she had always wanted to try this. Hikaru smiled and thought that it would be her gift. After a while, the waiter brought the dish and apologized for the wait. He placed a fruit smoothie on the table with 2 straws coming out of it. Hikaru was surprised and wondered why there were 2 straws in it. Fleur pushed the smoothie towards him and said that in that case they could drink it. Hikaru started to refuse, but the girl said that he had no choice and he should act like a man and drink it with her. The girl became sad and asked if he really didn't like her at all. Hikaru sighed and then said that it didn't matter. He blushed a little and said that they would do it. Hearing this, Fleur turned red and also agreed. Together they began drinking the cocktail, less than 10 centimeters apart. After a while, they finished the entire drink. Hikaru said it was delicious, which Fleur certainly agreed with. The girl was happy. Watching this, Hikaru couldn't help but smile. After that, Fleur suggested that they continue. Hikaru agreed. After the drink was finished, Hikaru suggested getting down to business. He reminded them that he had a question. Fleur smiled and asked what kind of question that was. She suddenly added that he shouldn't ask where she lived. Hikaru said she shouldn't worry, because he would never ask such a question. The girl was surprised that he said never. Hikaru stated that he wanted to know about what he had heard earlier, that Count Morphstadt's killer had been captured. The girl changed her mood. She asked in a serious tone where the guy heard this information. Hikaru said that he heard this in a conversation between the patrolmen. The girl said that it was impossible, because it was classified information. Hikaru asked her to tell him who it was. Fleur awkwardly said that even if she wanted to, she couldn't tell him. The depressed girl apologized. Hikaru said that everything was fine and then apologized for pressuring her. He thought that he shouldn't talk about it anymore. Suddenly, Fleur turned to him and asked why he wanted to know this. Hikaru explained that his friend had a terrible relationship with the Count, and it could be said that the Count was stalking him. That was why Hikaru was a little worried. The girl said that she understood. After a short pause, she spoke again. Fleur said that the criminal was the first to find his body. He was sent to the royal court, where they will decide his fate in 3 days. Hikaru was very surprised. Fleur started drinking tea and said that this was all she could tell him now. Hikaru thanked the girl. At that moment, he was overcome with panic. Because the first person to find the Count's body was the one who saved his life, he thought it was impossible and she couldn't be blamed. Hikaru knew it didn't make any sense. He thought that now he had to hurry because it was his turn to save this girl. At the estate, several guards were talking about how their shift was ending soon. They hoped that nothing would happen. One of them told the other that he was just worried, so he should calm down, because everything would be fine. At this time, Hikaru silently watched them from around the corner. The guy did not think that he would return to this place again. He didn't find her at the guard post or in the detention center. That only meant she was probably still in the Count's residence. It was no surprise the guards kept arriving. However, he was haunted by the question of where the girl could be. Hikaru reached one of the rooms and tried to enter, but the window was locked. He thought it would be useful to have some skills for breaking in. However, he had not encountered anything like that yet. Suddenly, the guy noticed something unusual. Right in his path was a dog, led by a guard. Hikaru was surprised that they even brought dogs. However, he had the protection of the god of stealth. He didn't think he had to worry about that. However, this dog could still get in his way. Suddenly, the dog sensed something and went in a certain direction. The guard followed it. When the dog was at the door of one of the rooms, the guard asked it if there was something there. The man opened the room and looked around. It was empty inside. He stroked the dog and said there was nothing there. They walked on, and the guard suggested the dog was hungry. Standing outside the door, Hikaru thought that his infiltration had gone well. Dogs have an incredible sense of smell, especially trained ones. And to take advantage of this, Hikaru stood at the door, deactivated his stealth skill, leaving his scent. After that, he immediately activated it to avoid getting caught. It was dangerous, but Hikaru was glad it worked. After that, Hikaru was able to explore the room freely. He noticed that there were quite a few books there. He picked up one of them and wondered what it could be about. The book turned out to be a regular adventure story. As he continued to take out books, Hikaru noticed that most of them were regular adventure novels. The room looked like it belonged to a boy who was fond of adventure books. He wondered why the room had such an elegant interior. He noticed the clothes and thought that they might have been from the last time. He realized that this room belonged to that girl. However, it didn't look like the room had been used recently. Hikaru came to the conclusion that the girl was being held somewhere else, but he didn't know where. Suddenly, the boy heard someone else's footsteps in the hallway and became wary. Two guards walked forward. One of them complained that he was tired. The other said that they were on a mission and his colleagues should concentrate. Suddenly, the bored man remembered what his friend had said earlier. He asked about the time the man had argued with his superiors about the investigation. The serious guard said he didn't know why his colleague had brought it up. It was pretty stupid to assume that the man who found the body was the killer. Hikaru realized that they were talking about her. The sleepy guard said that it was because of her that they were there, although they would soon return to the capital. They were upset that the girl was locked in that vile basement. Hikaru noted this information when the guards left. After wandering around the estate for a while, Hikaru found a staircase that seemed to be the entrance to the basement. The guy immediately went inside, thinking that the girl must be downstairs. Suddenly, he saw another guard in front of him, past whom he also successfully passed. Reaching the far door, Hikaru noticed that it was locked, as he expected. He started to get up, thinking that he needed to find the key. He thought the key must be upstairs. On his way upstairs, he heard someone talking. Outside, one of the guards was talking about how he was planning a night with the maid, but the man from the east had ruined everything. The second one understood why his friend was so early. The man said that the maid had fallen in love with him and he was sure that he would get something else. The second asked what happened to the girl from the bar. The man immediately remembered and said that he needed to check on this girl now. They didn't notice how quickly the time had come. The second one raised the key in his hand and said that he was ready anyway. After these words, they began to go down together. Hikaru knew that this corridor was too narrow, so even if he used stealth, they would just crash into him. The guy started to worry because he didn't see a way out of the situation. He thought about what to do. Suddenly, a murder skill came to his mind. The guy thought about killing these guards. He was sure that he could do it. Holding the knife in his hand, the guy wondered if he was really going to do it. He thought that he was seriously going to kill two innocent people because he made a mistake. He was about to charge when someone called out to the knights. The amazed maid said that she had recently spoken to a man from the east, and he had told her that the knight had been having fun with various girls while on missions. Holding the knife in her hands, the girl looked at him. The man turned around and said that this was impossible, and the knight from the east lied. He asked the girl to put the knife down so they could discuss it. The second man followed him and said that he had warned his friend more than once. Noticing the rescue, Hikaru slowly lowered his weapon. While the guy was returning to normal, one of the guards hung something on the door handle and asked how his comrades were doing. The maid screamed loudly that the man had lied to her and that she did not believe him. He tried to calm her down, saying that she knew that he loved only her. Suddenly, Hikaru noticed something he hadn't expected. A small key was hanging on the door. He took it, then fell heavily to the ground and exhaled. It was too close. The boy knew he was going to kill innocent people, and he would think about it for the rest of his life. He wondered what he should do next. He didn't want to believe that he would have to kill for the rest of his life. Suddenly, he thought that this was inevitable, and if something went wrong, he had to be ready and kill. That was why he had to do everything he could to avoid unnecessary casualties. With the same heaviness, Hikaru rose from his knees. He decided that he wouldn't burden himself with this for now, because at the moment he had more important things to do. The guy walked into the room and looked at the girl sitting in the cage. He thought she was pretty. Suddenly, the girl asked the guy in fear who he was. Hikaru claimed that he was the one she helped that time. He said that he was the one who killed the count, and he came there to save the girl. The girl responded calmly and thanked Hikaru for coming, but she had no way to get out. Hikaru asked if it was a magical prison. The girl confirmed this and said that it was built by the head of the Alchemist Guild, and he is the only one who can open it. Hikaru didn't expect the key to be a human. He said he could just kill him. The girl said she didn't think Hikaru could do it. The guy asked why. She stated that Hikaru's mind was too pure, and he would not be able to kill an innocent person. The guy was taken aback. He asked if she really didn't want to get out of there. Hikaru reminded her that she had saved him. In response, the girl said that she had a personal reason for doing so. Hikaru tried to convince her, but she refused. The guy asked why. She smiled and said that she had already fulfilled her task. After that, she said that Hikaru had already killed him. After that, the guy asked another question. He asked if the girl was the daughter of Count Morgstadt. She confirmed that in terms of kinship, this was true. Hikaru realized that he had killed her father. The girl told him that he shouldn't look at her like that. She asked if his parents locked him in a room or treated him like a simple object. She didn't even know when the last time she could go outside was. Hikaru asked if she was under house arrest. The girl said that her father was afraid of her, but she personally could not get rid of him, since he had a fairly high status. Hikaru was confused. The girl said that he should understand why the head of the alchemists would build this cage and lock an ordinary girl in it. She raised her hands and decided to show them why they should do that. Suddenly, everything around her started shaking. Hikaru was genuinely amazed. Hikaru wondered what kind of magic it was. The girl said that she simply had a huge supply of mana, and she could only use destruction magic. She lowered her hands, then thanked Hikaru for coming to her. She said that she never thought there would be anyone who would want to help her. She smiled and added that she didn't expect it from him anyway. Hikaru decided to ask who accused the girl of murder. In fact, she's about to be sent to the expeditionary forces. Since the government found out about her power under the pretext that she committed a terrible crime by killing her father, she will simply continue to secretly kill people on the front lines until she herself dies, becoming an assassin. She said that it could tarnish the history of the kingdom of Pansonia, so its existence would remain a secret. Hikaru stopped her and asked if she really meant to say that it was the king who wanted to make her a murderer because of her strength. The girl was silent for a moment. She said that at least she knew that someone was worried about her, for the one who had never experienced such a feeling. Hikaru was upset that she had resigned herself to it. He didn't understand why she gave up so easily and why she didn't want to live her own life. Suddenly, the girl said that he should leave, because security would come soon. The guy didn't believe that she was so different. The girl said that it was time for him to go. Suddenly, Hikaru saw that her hands were shaking. He realized that it was impossible, because even if it was, he didn't know why her hands were shaking like that. He also got this idea from all the stories about the adventures in her room. He thought that she had not really given up. Hikaru asked if she would tell him her name. The girl said that there was no need for that, and he would quickly forget it. The next moment, Hikaru took off his mask, which greatly surprised the girl. He just couldn't forget her name. He told her his name and said it was her turn. She lowered her head and said her name was Livia von Morgstadt. Suddenly, she started crying, after which she told him to just call her Livia. After that, the guy addressed her by name and said that he needed her. She cried out that he should not say another word. Livia declared that if he said anything more, she would have hope again, although there was nothing she could do. She said that she was already glad that the Count was dead, and that she did not want more. Hikaru said that it didn't matter what she said because he would save her. He said that Livia was right, and he didn't want to kill innocent people. So he wouldn't. He would just get her out of here without killing anyone. Hikaru said that the opportunity would come in 3 days when she was being transported to the capital. He said that he would help her regardless of her wishes. Just as he had suddenly appeared in her life by killing her father, he was going to do the same thing this time. The girl stood up and walked to the edge of the cage. She asked if she could trust him, and if she would be too pushy. The guy said it was okay, and he was the only one there who owed her his life. The girl wanted to say something, but Hikaru interrupted her and said that he would do everything in his power. At this time, the guards were walking around. One of them sighed and said that he had not expected that such a thing could happen. The second said that the two responsible for the task had not thought about it at all. Together, the guards entered the room where Livia lay. One of them said that if he were in the other's place, he would just sit and read books. The second one replied that the same thing sometimes happens. He said that the first guard was too worried about his daughter. The first one asked how he could not be worried. At this time, Livia could not sleep at all. Hikaru ran out of the mansion, thinking that there were only 3 days left to prepare. Fleur was sorting through the documents when another one came up to her and noticed how happy her friend was. Fleur was surprised by the arrival of Gloria, who said that she had heard rumors that they had a newcomer who was simply obsessed with Fleur. The girl blushed and said that Hikaru was not like that. Gloria noted the boy's name. Red Floor apologized and said that she had to go. Gloria smiled. Hikaru walked through the city and thought that he needed to do something before saving Livia, and the most important thing was to earn money, because he needed money to live and to shelter her after saving her. Suddenly, Hikaru noticed Gloria and thought that he was seeing her for the first time. He wondered if it was possible that Flora was having a day off. He wondered what the guild was counting on for all these beauties. He didn't understand if there was really an indicator that said that the survival rate of adventurers was higher if the guild had beautiful receptionists. Gloria looked at Hikaru intently when she noticed him. Looking at the two tasks, Hikaru said that the reward was too small. There are many ranks among adventurers. The highest rank is A, the lowest is G. It is said that there is also an S rank. Because Hikaru was only a G rank, he can't take good missions, and the Red-Horned Rabbit is still being evaluated. Suddenly, a girl approaches him and asks if he is looking for a new mission. Gloria smiled and said that if Hikaru didn't mind, she could look at his guild card. The girl asked if Hikaru had any requests. He wondered why she would talk to him. He wondered if she was going to start new ads. Then the guy took out his card and handed it to Gloria. The girl looked at her, after which her face became stern. She thought he was an adventurer who was pursuing Floor. She noticed that he wasn't even of noble birth, since he didn't have a last name, and he didn't have the blessing of a common man. However, he definitely wasn't human, which might anger Floor. She thought there was definitely something special about him. She turned to Hikaru and asked if he had any other blessings besides the civilian ones. Hikaru was surprised. She said that she was a guild worker, so he should answer. She asked if Fleur knew about it. The boy said he had no other blessings. Gloria did not believe that he was just an ordinary citizen. She was sure that Fleur had told him to hide it. Gloria thought that Fleur had gotten herself a great adventurer, but to the extent that she had decided to hide his blessings, she did not understand it. All she knew for sure was that he was unusual. She thought that he was already definitely fascinated by her. Gloria handed the guy another task and asked if he wanted to accept this request. She said it was a delivery and he could handle it quickly. He asked if it was that simple. She said it would be perfect for civilians like Hikaru. The guy read the assignment and said that it was not bad and he would complete it today. Gloria said she would be happy to discuss the details of the assignment with him. She politely asked him to come to the counter. Hikaru assumed that the man had a dark past. However, the boy was glad that he had accepted the task. Only now that he thought about it, it was strange. He found himself in an empty alley. Hikaru moved along the underground paths and seemed to be on the right track. He covered his nose and wondered if someone really lived there. He activated stealth so he could ignore the bats. It was pretty dark there. Hikaru wasn't sure if he could even turn on the flashlight there, so he didn't. Suddenly, he heard someone coming. Two guards were talking to each other. One of them asked if the other had met the client. The man answered positively and said that the client had praised him, but it would still be much easier to kill him and take what was needed. The first one disagreed and said that his comrade should not kill anyone. The second one said that he knew and the boss did not like to spill blood. They assumed that they were orphans, since they had been going there more and more often lately. The second one said that he thought so. At this time, Hikaru watched them, thinking that even with stealth, he left traces. He knew he had to be careful not to make the same mistakes over and over again, which is why he double-checked how stealth worked while he was in town. Life detection blocking and magic power blocking prevents it from being detected only by those people who have these abilities. There's also a perception block that makes him invisible to others even if he walks right in front of them. But if he waves or slaps them in the face, they'll notice right away. But even if they only look at him, as soon as they turn away, they immediately stop noticing him again. And if you add the blessing of the god of secrecy, he will become almost invisible. Well, Hikaru doesn't think it's worth turning on the light because it spreads far and also reflects. He decided it was better not to even think about using the flashlight. The guards hurried to Mr. Kelbeck because he was waiting for them. The second one grinned and said that his colleague knew how scary their boss was. Suddenly, Hikaru realized that he had learned the name of their boss. The boy had a feeling that they thought that each one followed one, just as one followed all, and that was why they were going. He wondered who this Kelbeck was. The guy came to the conclusion that he could have been a former gunsmith, but there definitely had to be something else there. After some time, they all arrived at a small passage, which was also guarded by other people. When they arrived, they were immediately yelled at for being 5 minutes late. The man pointed to his friend and said that he'd simply picked up a girl at the entrance to the 440. The second one exclaimed and asked why he was handed over. The boss ordered everyone to be quiet. He said that they were both to blame for this. After he read these guys' work, he smiled and said that they had done a good job. The men said they would go with the boss's permission. The commander gave his consent. He told them to be more careful next time. After they left, he sighed when suddenly Hikaru turned to him and greeted him, which greatly surprised the man. The boss asked in shock who it was. Hikaru apologized and said that he didn't want to make a fuss, and especially he didn't want to fight. The boss wondered what this guy was doing, and even more so, he didn't understand how he got to this place. At this time, Hikaru was rummaging through his bag, taking out a letter. After a few moments, Hikaru handed the man a neat letter. The boss wondered if it was a magical trap in the form of a letter. Hikaru asked if this was what the boss ordered. He said pitifully that he hoped Kelbeck would take him. The man clenched his teeth. He didn't understand why he was afraid of Hikaru, because he was an ordinary guy. He quickly walked up to him and snatched the letter from his hands. The man read it and realized that it came from the Adventurers Guild. He looked at Hikaru and came to the conclusion that the boy was a messenger from the guild. He stated that he had one question. Hikaru picked up on his words and asked if it was about how he got to this place. Kelbeck said that it was, so he wanted to hear the boy's explanation. He pointed to a chair and asked Hikaru to sit down, which he obediently did. The man asked the messenger's name. Hikaru introduced himself, then asked if he had understood correctly that the man's name was Kelbeck. The boss confirmed it and asked who Hikaru had conspired with to get to this place. In response to this question, Hikaru stated that he did nothing of the sort and simply walked away. The man exclaimed for the boy to stop lying. After that, he stood up and walked towards the exit of the room. As soon as Kelbeck came out, he asked the guards if they had seen the strange guy pass by them. The surprised guards said that no one could pass by them. Kelbeck asked that even so, did they notice anyone? They began to whisper, saying that no one passed by them. Kelbeck understood that if Hikaru came from the guild, he should have been stopped on the steps of the entrance and then sent back. In general, no one had ever entered this place. The man returned to the room and went behind the table. He sat down and said that the guards didn't even see Hikaru pass by, so he didn't understand what the guy wanted to talk about. Hikaru said that it was just a coincidence. Kelbeck rubbed his temples and said that maybe that was the case, but the guards didn't even notice him. He was sure that Hikaru wasn't alone there, and he even had the courage to show himself to him, Kelbeck, as if nothing had happened. Hikaru asked if Kelbeck had signed the form. The man took a deep breath, but quickly took the papers and signed them. He took something out of his pocket and stamped it. After that, he handed the completed form to Hikaru. The boy thanked the man for it. After that, he was about to leave, but Kelbeck stopped him. He asked what Hikaru thought the man was. Hikaru smiled and said that he could be a mage or a member of some secret organization with similar status. He asked if he was thinking correctly. The man looked at him intently. Hikaru said he wasn't interested anyway. Kelbeck sighed and cursed, asking if the guy didn't know what he was talking about. He put his feet up on a table and said that Hikaru should realize this. Outsiders called them the Guild of Thieves. They might be perceived as thieves, but they did not steal from the common people. Hikaru understood this. He said that if it were not so, Kelbeck would not be talking to him now, but would simply attack him. After these words, the man sighed heavily again. He said that if Hikaru ever needed help, he could just call his name, and he would help. He smiled and said that it would not be for nothing. Hikaru asked the man to remember that it was not worth spoiling relations with the Adventurers Guild. He agreed with him and asked him to leave. After that, Hikaru walked towards the exit. Kelbeck thought that this guy was a little scary. However, he wasn't bad at all, and Kelbeck decided that he should keep an eye on Hikaru. At this time, the Adventurers Guild was quiet. Gloria was wondering how Hikaru was doing. She worked with the other adventurers, telling them that the task was complete and they could now go and rest. She thought that very soon the Thieves Guild would contact them, and at that moment she would appear, save him, and he would be in her debt. All she had to do was wait. Gloria smiled sweetly as she called the next adventurers to her. Standing in front of her was Hikaru, asking if anything had happened while he was gone. The guy put the completed form on the table and said that he was there to report on the completion of the task. Gloria looked at the guy silently, in complete shock. Hikaru asked if something had happened. The girl laughed and said that everything was fine. She asked if Hikaru had managed to meet Kelbeck. The guy answered positively and stated that nothing unusual had happened. The girl was surprised. In an instant, she smiled again and said that she was glad to hear it. She placed a small bag on the table and said that it was Hikaru's reward of 200 Gilan. The girl thought that Kelbeck was the head of a thieves' guild, something like the head of an underground. It wasn't that easy to meet him. She didn't understand how Hikaru managed to get there then. The guy smiled and said that in that case he would go. Gloria, however, was thinking that she was becoming more and more curious. At this time, Hikaru looked at the money, thinking that he had only earned 200 Gilan that day. Suddenly, he was met by Mr. Ankin, who said that Hikaru had come to him just in time. The man said that the rabbit with red horns that Hikaru brought sold for quite a good price. The boy asked what price his catch had earned. The man said that it was somewhere around 147,500 Gilan. Ankin asked if Hikaru would only take 47,000 and leave thousands for the guild. He thought about how a guild card worked just like a bank card, allowing him to borrow money from any other adventurer's guild if needed. Hikaru had no idea that rabbits with red horns were so valuable. He couldn't even imagine it. But now he didn't have to worry about money. Now he decided to turn to Ankin. He smiled and asked if the gentleman could answer a few questions. Thanks to the red horn hare, the fundraiser for Libya's rescue is complete. Hikaru only has 2 tasks left to complete. The first was to gather information to move Libya, and the second was to improve skills. After walking through the forest, Hikaru said that he had finally found a place where he could hunt in peace. Yesterday, Hikaru questioned Ankin. He told the old man that he wanted to ask him something. The guy asked the man if there was a dangerous monster nearby that he should not cross paths with. Ankin became more stern. He asked why the boy was asking him about this. Hikaru fell silent. He realized that the old man had sensed something with his intuition skill, and he needed to be careful with it. Hikaru said it was to keep from getting too close to him. He said he just wanted to hunt in the forest, and maybe go deeper. Hikaru said he just wanted to know where he should stay. Ankin believed him and told him there were 4 types to watch out for: green wolf, wandering bee, forest barbarian, and goblin. Hikaru asked if goblins were dangerous too. The man confirmed this and said that there was a situation recently in which a person ran into him near the village. They say that if there is one goblin, there are actually more than 300 of them. Hikaru remembered that. He said that it was the first time he had heard of wandering bees and forest barbarians. Ankin said that a wandering bee is a bee with degenerate wings. They usually move one at a time, but they can call their comrades together in just 1 second. The forest barbarian is 3 meters tall and has 4 arms. It is one-eyed and has a human-like build, but its body surface is smooth. Hikaru said that from the description he looked like a real monster. Ankin told the guy not to come near them. Hikaru said that he understood, and then asked about places where it was also undesirable to go. The man looked at him intently, then sighed and told Hikaru not to go deep into the forest or to the foothills of the mountains. The eastern lake was also dangerous, as there were many monsters there. Hikaru noted this again and thanked Ankin. That's how the guy ended up on the eastern lake. As Ankin said, this place should be filled with monsters. It was not profitable for Hikaru to kill small monsters now, because it would actually lower his stats. Hikaru was looking for dangerous species. The more such monsters he destroyed, the higher his experience would be. However, the guy didn't want to spend a lot of energy on quantity, so he himself wouldn't want to run into goblins and wandering bees. In that case, all he had left were the forest barbarians and green wolves. Suddenly, Hikaru noticed something. It was a green wolf. The animal had a very strong sense of smell, and the distance reached as much as 200 meters. However, the guy was going to use his stealth skills. Hikaru carefully crept up behind the wolf and stabbed him with a dagger. The wolf screamed loudly and then fell down dead. Hikaru remained unnoticed. He had the skill to kill, so he easily defeated the green wolf. Suddenly, Hikaru felt an incredible energy and did not understand what was happening. After some time spent recovering, he noticed that it seemed to have calmed down. He didn't even think that by killing one, he would rise to a whole level. Hikaru also noticed that he felt less horror when killing someone. He looked at the bloody dagger and assumed that it was already a habit. A person can get used to anything, and murder is no exception. Hikaru just had to learn to control it. Yesterday, he tried to kill innocent people because of his own mistake. So he made a set of rules for himself. If he decided to kill, then he must do it. Stealth skill is great for gathering information, and it was an important part of Hikaru's plan. The boy put his dagger back into its sheath and decided that he should continue on his way, in the same spirit. Sitting on a small tree, he had lunch. He decided that he would think about how to distribute the points he had received later. But now, he had to earn as many of them as possible. After eating, he climbed down from the tree and quickly decided that it was time to return to work. He wondered who should beat next. Suddenly, he heard unknown sounds from the forest. The wary guy looked towards the deep forest. At this time, the small goblins were fighting with the man. He wondered how many of them were there because he and his team had already killed many, but all to no avail. Surrounded on all sides, the humans, who were a group of adventurers, tried to fight off the endless onslaught of small but dangerous goblins. The three girls tried to stick together. One of them told Paula, the girl in the church dress, that she was a restorer and therefore she should stay behind them. The surprised girl turned to her friends, whose names were Pia and Priscilla. The restorer turned around but saw nothing but goblins. At that moment, she was overcome by real horror. The frightened girl thought that they should not have come to this place after all. Some time ago, when they were still in the city, she immediately felt something strange when they were addressed. A group of men told them that they were now going to collect rare plants at the eastern lake, and they invited the girls to go with them. The lively woman immediately said that they refused, so the men should look for someone else. The man looked straight into Pia's eyes and said that they could earn very well. Hearing this, the girl became interested. Without thinking about it for long, she said that they could go after all. A shocked Paula turned to her friend and asked if Pia could think about it more carefully. Pia said that these people would pay them. She asked if this was not a good way for them to save money. She reminded Paula of the reason they became adventurers. The girl awkwardly said that it was to earn a lot of money and help poor villages. She agreed and asked what was the matter then. She turned to the third friend, Priscilla, and asked if she agreed. The absent-minded girl looked at them silently. Pia said that if they send the money they earned, all the villages will be happy. Paula agreed, but was still wary. She said she had heard that the eastern lake was very dangerous. One of the men interrupted their conversation and said that there was nothing to worry about. He put his two-handed sword on his shoulder and said that there were no big monsters there. He raised the weapon and said that even if there were any, he would destroy them all. Pia asked her friend to agree again. She said that they had nothing to worry about, pointing at the men. The girl was sure that everything would be fine. Pia put her hand on Paula's shoulder and said that she would protect her. Hearing this, she finally agreed to her friend's persuasion. After that, they went forward. Polya thought that this was all a big mistake. While on the battlefield, she wondered how things could have turned out like this. All her friends fought hard. Suddenly, one of the men was shot in the shoulder by an arrow. Everyone was surprised by the appearance of such a weapon in the battle with the goblins. While Paula was healing the man, others were saying that if they were using arrows, it meant that it was the entire goblin family. The wounded man said that some were very close. The head of the family was directing all their actions. One of the instigator's subordinates asked if they could resist. The man exclaimed that it was impossible because there were too many monsters. He gritted his teeth and cursed. He said that he was finally glad that he could meet beautiful girls who were adventurers. Suddenly, the man approached Pola and asked the girl if she knew that she was the goblin's main target. At that moment, he looked desperate. Pola, not entirely convinced, said she was not aware of such information. In response, the man stated that the purpose of goblins was reproduction. The man said that they need to catch human women and force them to create offspring for them. So the girls are the target, not them. The man grabbed the girl and said that if they sacrificed her, everyone else would be saved. She started screaming for the man not to do it. Others tried to look away and distract themselves. The girl resisted at that moment, but she was told that saving people's lives was her duty. Then the girl was pushed out. She saw a huge pile of goblins in front of her. They started licking their lips and walking straight towards her. The girl realized that she shouldn't have become an adventurer. Her dreams of a happy future will not come true. It turned out that now she had to give birth to offspring from goblins. She wished herself death. Suddenly, the girl opened her eyes and saw a young man in front of her, who was offering her his hand. The girl realized that this was a fateful meeting. There were a lot of goblins standing in front of the girl and the boy. He told her to be careful, and then asked if the girl could hear him. She said that the young man was very handsome, then threw herself at him to get him. He couldn't understand what was wrong with the girl. Suddenly, a man from the side asked him what he was doing and said that he was in the way. If the girl had belonged to them, they would have been saved, but now they would have to fight. The boy thought that the men just left because they wanted to escape themselves. The man asked what was wrong with that. Then a few more girls came up and asked the man what he had done with Pola. He asked her what she was suggesting. The young man said that they would all run away soon. Suddenly there was a loud sound and all the goblins were scared. They started running away. The young man said that, as he had said, everyone had run away. The man replied that it would be better to leave now because it was dangerous here. They ran away, but 3 girls remained next to the young man, thanking him for saving Paula. The boy replied that everything was fine. The girl replied that Paula had healing magic, so they would recover. Then the girl asked if the boy would leave. Then she realized that he was strong. The young man offered to take the debt from them. He's talking about the guys who were with them. If they spread the word about what just happened, then no one will cooperate with them anymore. Then another girl talks about the non-disclosure agreement. The boy adds that it is for their safety. The young man remembered 2 boys who had also run away and asked the girls if they were friends. The ladies replied that they were simply from the same village. The young man then says goodbye, but Pola stops him and introduces herself. The boy says his name is Hikaru. Pola asks the boy to take them to the lake. The other girls support the idea. Hikaru agrees and says that he will watch them from a distance. Pola asks if they will go with them. Hikaru replied that he had agreed to accompany them and he felt awkward in front of them. The girls said that Pola had been acting very strangely. The girl was surprised. After some time, they went to the lake, and the young man watched them from afar. Suddenly, they heard a sound. They were goblins. The young man realized that it was a whole family of goblins. He understands that he is not able to overcome an entire family. Then the goblin boss appears. If the boss is defeated, all the other goblins will run away. So the young man decides to engage in battle with him. He deftly makes his way between the other goblins and attacks the goblin boss with a knife. He dies immediately. The young man realized that his rank had risen 3 notches. However, the goblins did not disperse. There was nothing he could do, and he would have to speed up. He kills one goblin after another with lightning speed. After some time, he and the girls reach the lake. Hikaru says it will be safer from now on, and says goodbye to the girls. The girls leave and he decides to resume hunting. Returning to the city at the end of the day, he realized that his rank had risen significantly. The last monster was huge. 10 points left, and that was enough. He just needed to get information about the convoy's day. If the person is from the guild, Freya knew about it. Then she has even more different information. He goes to the guild. He enters the guild and sees the recent girls there. They want the young man to prove their words. Regarding those traitors, everyone accepted, but they need something about the opponents. The young man understands that they need information about the goblins. A girl comes up and says that the guild should know about everything, and the young man should tell everything. Last time they did different things, and now the young man goes with other girls. She demands negotiations, and the young man agrees and says that he doesn't mind. They came to a cafe, and the young man asked why, to which the girl replied that the pasta was delicious there. Then he asked why the other girls were there too, since he wasn't going to pay for them. Thinking about tomorrow, he shouldn't be eating here now. He asked Freya about the guild, and it didn't matter that it was still open. The girl said that there was nothing to worry about, because there were a lot of people in the guild who were watching her. They are then interrupted by a man who greets Freya, who introduces Hikaru to him. The man asked about the red-horned rabbit and asked if the hero would sell it. Freya forbade it, and the man laughed. The man offers the young man a good deal, but he doesn't like the way he treats him. The man apologizes to him. The man says that today he is treating, and in return, the young man will think about a deal. Hikaru is surprised. Pola apologizes to the boy for what happened. Hikaru says that it's no big deal, and then suggests that she cut the formalities. The girl started to get embarrassed and shout strange things, but soon their food was brought. The young man was asked about those goblins. He said that he defeated their boss and they all ran away. Freya is glad that the young man is reading the instructions. He said that it depends on her whether he will live tomorrow or not. The girl turns to Hikaru and thanks him for saving them once again. She asks about the reward. The girl offers to give him chastity. Freya is categorically against it because the young man will be uncomfortable. The young man said that there is no need to pay anything, and this also applies to Freya. He wants them not to tell anyone about this incident. Freya says that they are going to interrogate those escaped boys. Hikaru then says that he has one more question for Freya. He asks about the escort squad. He looks at the girl's reaction and realizes that their people from the guild are also among the escorts. Freya replied that the girls would arrive tonight. The escort was led by 4 B-rank girls. Everyone was surprised by what they heard. There was only one A-rank girl in the capital, and all the other 10 were B-rank. Freya says that the name of this group of 4 B-rank girls is 4 Eastern Stars. It became clear to the hero that Livia would be accompanied by B-rank adventurers. He was curious about what they were like. At this time, the man turned to the master and said that he was too worried. Then 3 men appeared. At this time, the hero stood behind the wall and used life detection to figure out who was standing in the other room. There was Uniken, the administrator and submaster, as well as the other 3 adventurers. They were very different from what the hero was told. The young man looked at the adventurer's stats and they were very low, and the other 2 weren't that strong. The men discussed how they would accompany the carriage. The men said that they were C-rank adventurers, so they would be able to repel any attack. Soon they gather to have a drink before tomorrow. Then all the people leave and only the master and the girl remain. The man finds all this very suspicious. Then they talk about Rolinko, who is the captain of the Night Army. Hide thinks he is very strong. Then the dialogue ended, and the hero ran away. He was lucky that there would be only 3 escorts, and so far luck was on his side. Thus, tomorrow he will save Livia. After some time, the male guards were talking about whether Mrs. Livia was really a criminal. They believed that there was no direct evidence of her guilt, but she was guilty from the very beginning. They are against the decision taken by the authorities. The girl was handcuffed, which would remain until tonight, but then it would be more difficult. The man bowed, and the guard called for Mrs. Livia to follow him. The girl came out of the stone. Suddenly the wind stirred, and the man thought it was strange. The girl stepped out in the fresh air, and her body swayed a little. The man saw some people near the carriage. At this time, another man said that these were not the same adventurers. But the man replied that adventurers were like adventurers. Soon a girl appeared, and the male adventurer said that she was pretty. The male guard noticed that he was drunk. While they were arguing, the girl got into the carriage, which was locked. The men began to argue about how they should accompany the lady and not the other adventurers. The adventurers began to pester the girl. The guard turned to the coachman and said that if they asked him for the keys, he should not give them up under any circumstances. After a while, the carriage set off. The men watched it go. Suddenly, the captain of the guards appeared nearby. The men asked why he was there, but the captain replied that it was a very important matter. So he hurried to see the situation for himself. The man approached the captain and asked if he could accompany the girl. The captain replied that everything had to be done properly. After some time, the carriage passes the checkpoint. The papers were absolutely correct, so they are allowed to proceed further. Suddenly, the coachman noticed that the horse was moving more slowly. He looked back and thought that he had imagined it. After some time, the adventurer drove up to the coachman and asked him for the key. Suddenly, they saw a body right on the road. The man asked for some water and said that he had just come out of the forest. The man got off his horse and gave the stranger some water. The stranger offered him everything he had, but the adventurer said he didn't need it. He gave his name, Roga, and said he would become a hero. The wagon and its escort moved on. The adventurer man got bored and decided to take a break. Then he demanded the key from the coachman, but the coachman said he couldn't give it to him. The man hit the coachman and took the keys by force. He opened the door of the carriage and saw a blanket. The man decided to pull the blanket back, but there was no one there. The girl was gone. 2 men are standing near a carriage and talking to each other. Suddenly they hear that they have an emergency. They ask the man why he was shouting and what happened. He replies that they are missing. The men do not understand what he is talking about and ask again. He exclaims that he said the same and tells them that the girl has disappeared. A few hours ago, before the incident, a young girl was sitting alone in a carriage. She reflects on the fact that since that day, the boy named Hikaru has not appeared. The girl remembers that he promised her that he would save her, but there was no word from him. She thinks that maybe he shouldn't have believed her. And looking at her handcuffed hands, she sadly realizes that it's natural that no one will save her by going against the government. The girl wonders why she didn't think of that. Someone suddenly says that in the country where he grew up, they say that if you sigh, you've missed out on happiness. The girl turns to see who it is. The young man puts his finger to her lips and asks her not to scream, saying that they will be discovered if she raises her voice. The girl did not expect to see him and sits in confusion. Hikaru asks if she wants to ask him why he is with her now, and adds that it is a long story and he will tell her later. The girl looks at Hikaru and realizes that he has come. She rejoices, thinking that he is truly her savior. Hikaru reflects on how everything is going according to his plan so far. He remembers that he first went down to the basement where Livia was to check the readiness. He thinks that he was then interested in the shackles that were put on her, and he wanted to know when they could be removed and what conditions were necessary for this. Hikaru remembers watching the guildmaster close the lock and saying that they would weaken over time, so he calmed down, realizing that a key would not be needed. The young man reflects on the fact that he then watched as she was led into the carriage to which, naturally, there was a key, but it was also under supervision. He thinks about what it means. He only needed one key, and realizing this, he headed to the starting point to inspect the area. Hikaru recalls that after he climbed onto the roof of the carriage, seized the moment and pulled them out of the man's pocket, and, using the key, checked whether it opened all the doors, and after returning it back, went inside. Hikaru thinks about how he's been thinking about all the different possible turns of events, but he realizes that it looks like luck is on his side. The boy tells Livia to take a blanket and a pillow and asks her to pretend to be asleep. He puts a hooded cloak on her and says that now comes the most important thing. He decides that Livia knows how to hide herself. Hikaru reflects on how he has long been curious about how points are awarded. From his previous experience, he realized that a person cannot just get them. The young man suggests that perhaps they are awarded through persistent training and repetition, as well as practical application. He realizes that he has free control over his glasses and can also check the soul boards of another person at a distance of 5 meters. Hikaru looks at Livia and wonders what is possible and can use other people's glasses. He wonders if he can really do it. Hikaru turns to Livia, saying that he wants to ask her something. He asks if she is willing to do anything to escape. The girl resolutely agrees. He opens the panel and is shocked to read its readings. Hikaru realizes that her magical powers are 1 out of 30, which is the highest he has seen in others. He notices a strange icon but realizes that it won't open and assumes that he can't look in there yet. He thinks it's weird that he can even pick on his glasses. The young man notices that she has 0 points and understands that she cannot hide the score in curses. Hikaru notices that the name is signed as Livia, but in reality, it should be Livia de Morgestat, and realizes that this means she doesn't even have any connections in the family. He decides to go further and remembers that he has 10 points left. He decides to use group concealment. Hikaru understands that there will be no point in group concealment at maximum if the blocking of the presence of magic and perception is lower, so for now, he can only use this skill to this extent. Hikaru thinks that now Livia will be able to hide like him, but he is not sure about her guild card. The young man suggests that perhaps Rosa will not notice. He tells Livia that it is time, and they should get ready. Livia asks the young man to tell her their plan, assuring them that it will be more convenient for them. Hikaru agrees with her words. He says he will open the door, and they will go out together and hide quietly behind the bushes. Livia wonders how they will do this, because there are guards there. The young man holds out his hand to her, telling her to look. Hikaru tells her to watch the action and asks her to give him her hand. Livia is embarrassed, but takes his hand. The young man realizes that they will soon begin. Someone calls Rogues. Hikaru realizes that they have stopped, which means this is the place where they will escape. He tells Livia to go. They get out of the carriage, but the guards don't pay any attention to them, and the girl is shocked by this. Livia realizes that the guards don't notice them. Hikaru asks her not to let go of his hand, and they walk right past the guards. They move away from the carriage, and watching the man who distracted the guards, the young man realizes that he did the right thing by hiring a man for this job. Hikaru and Livia walk through the bushes, and the young man asks her not to relax because it is not safe yet. He tells her that there is a place 2 kilometers away from them where traders who have a long journey usually rest. Hikaru says they will sneak into that place. Livia points out that it is far away and asks what will happen next. The boy replies that they will be in Ponda. Hikaru asks Livia who she thinks will be the first suspects of her kidnapping. Livia replies that the aristocrats and people from another country. Livia adds that no one from other countries knows about her abilities. Hikaru replies that they will mostly ask the aristocrats. The youth reports that Pond is where most of the aristocrats are concentrated. Livia notes that there would be much more scrutiny there then. Hikaru says that this is incorrect. He says that Pond is in the hands of the king, and this decides a lot, because all the aristocrats know that nothing can be hidden from the king. Hikaru tells Livia that this is why everyone will look for her everywhere but Ponda. The young man adds that he will also be examined, but less than other cities. He hears some sounds and quickly grabs Livia's hand. Livia asks what's wrong, and Hikaru puts his finger to his lips, signaling her to be quiet. He watches the road and assumes he hears footsteps. He sees a man on a horse, and noticing the coat of arms, assumes that it is a knight. He realizes that he has never seen anything like it. Hikaru thinks that, as he realized, he is chasing rogues and notices this strength in the muscles and magical power of the knight. The young man realizes that the knight will most likely inspect the carriage, so they will find that Livia is gone. Hikaru gets angry and curses. He realizes they need to get back to Pond before word spreads. Hikaru decides that he will return and go to the guild to take on a new task. He believes that no one would think that a criminal would calmly take up work in the guild after committing a crime. He knows that if they don't make it, things are bad for them. He looks at the confused Livia. Hikaru tells the girl that he will stop him and asks her to stay put and not move. Livia asks who he is. Hikaru answers that he is a follower and puts on his mask. He realizes that he has 3 points left and thinks that it is not enough. He decides that he will activate everything he will need for the fight first. He activates throwing for 2 and hopes that he can somehow cope with these forces. He muses that he was going to bring arrows for throwing because they would go well together, but he decided against it because it was disadvantageous. Hikaru decides that he would be more comfortable in spy mode. The young man tells himself to calm down, believing that everything is fine and he will get through this stage. The knight rides forward on his horse. He thinks he heard all their conversations, so he hopes everything will be as they said. He decides that he must gather more information in the capital, and if the roads coincide, then it's okay, and understands that there is a high probability that he will catch up. Suddenly, a stone flies into the eye of the knight's horse. The horse and the knight fall to the ground, but the man quickly gets up. He takes out his sword and asks who attacked them. The man exclaims that his name is Roland de Ferkin, and that he is a knight serving his country. He shouts that he does not know his identity, but tells him to prepare for death since he attacked him. Hikaru realizes that it is the captain and does not understand what he is doing here. He remembers that he is also called Kensei. He wonders what they say about his huge sword, but right now he just has a long one. Hikaru assumes that he has the wrong information. He tells himself not to doubt, because there is only one of him here. He decides that he can defeat him, but before that, he wants to see a soul board. He thinks that it should help him. The boy senses something while the knight tries to find him. Hikaru is scared. He, hiding in the bushes, watches the knight and notices that his aura is very strong. He realizes that this aura is pressing, but he must look at his soul board. He thinks that he had enough strength to catch up with them, almost on foot. Hikaru advances towards the knight and counts. He thinks there are 8 meters, 6 winds, and 2 steps left. Roland de Ferkin looks at him with a threatening look. The young man is frightened, thinking that he has noticed him, but the knight shouts, asking where he is, and demanding that he come out. Hikaru realizes that Roland de Ferkin hasn't seen him and sneaks closer. He reads his soul board and can't believe what he sees. He reads on the soul board that he has a large sword and a muscle strength of 16. He realizes that this is the first time he has seen someone with muscle strength greater than 10. He thinks that he is interested in his heavenly sword. The young man is sure that it is some kind of special skill. Hikaru assumes that the knight does not possess magic, but realizes that he does not need it with such data. On the soul board, he also sees that his restorative power is 8 and it was taken out 11. He is surprised by such indicators and wonders whether he is a human or what. Hikaru decides that he needs to do something or he'll be stuck. The boy holds a stone in his hand and wonders what he can do with it. He realizes that if it weren't for the throwing, he wouldn't have stopped it. The knight says he sees him, and Hikaru is horrified to realize he is looking in Livia's direction. He can't believe he noticed her, because the distance between them is about 50 meters. He suspects that it is intuition. The knight prepares to attack Livia, and the youth, noticing this, throws a stone at him. He believes that, If it hits, then even he should be affected, because he has increased his strength on the soul board. The knight deflects the stone's attack with his sword. Hikaru realizes that he has cut such a small stone in half. Rollins attacks Hikaru, saying that this is where he was hiding and that this is the end of him. Hikaru is scared, thinking that this is not it. The knight strikes with his sword, but looking at the cut ground, he realizes that Hikaru managed to dodge. He asks him where he went. Hikaru believes that it is close, and if it were not for the instant reaction, he would already be gone. He realizes that he is wounded in the arm and calls the knight a demon. Hikaru remembers the knight's blow and realizes that he lacked the first-level instant reaction. But if he hadn't had it, he would already be dead. Hikaru is swearing and doesn't understand what to do in this situation. He holds his injured hand. Hikaru thinks that now is the time for him to calm down. He decides that he needs to hide the blood first, so he quickly bandages his hand with cloth. The young man thinks that he should take at least a small distance and cross to the other side to avoid the risk to Livia. He thinks that in this case, the knight will not go further towards Livia. Hikaru ponders what he should do next, since with his current abilities, he won't be able to defeat Rollins. He notices that the knight makes everything look easy. Hikaru realizes that he is still at a dead end and thinks that he needs to come up with a new plan. Hikaru wonders why the knight didn't see the stone. He realizes that Rollins wasn't sure he was there. He wonders if the stone did something wrong or destroyed something, because the boy came 5 meters away from him and he didn't notice him. But the stone did. Hikaru thinks about it and realizes that it's because the stone has moved away from him. He believes that the stone, flying forward, comes out of his cover, and Rollins felt this and cut the stone. The young man decides that he has one way, but it is very risky. Livia goes to his side and calls him, asking where he is. The young man grabs her hand and angrily asks why she is here. Livia replies that she felt that Rollins could not be defeated. She suggests that Hikaru run away, saying that it does not matter where. The young man thinks that this will not work. Livia notices the injured arm and screams, reminding Hikaru of it. The young man notices that the bleeding won't stop and realizes that it needs to be treated. Livia tells Hikaru to go back first. The boy is surprised by her words. Livia explains that she is not injured and that she is fine, so she can wait for him for a day, 5, or forever. She assures him that she is fine. Hikaru realizes that if they leave it like this, Rollins will realize that she is missing and will continue on to the capital. He realizes that they will try their best to hide their presence. The young man thinks that on Monday everyone will know that Livia was kidnapped, and if he treats his hand, everyone will suspect him. He thinks about what Livia will do then. Hikaru realizes that she, who has nothing in her hands, will wander in the forest in an area where there are many different creatures and monsters. He realizes that it is too dangerous. Hikaru looks at Livia and notices something. Hikaru notices from her shaking hands that she is also nervous. However, she hides it and tries to be strong. He thinks about how things are going and decides that if he's going to take a risk, then it should be together. The young man tells Livia that he will not leave her here and declares that he will defeat Rollins. He confidently says that he and she, together they will defeat him. Livia, surprised, repeats his words. Hikaru admits to her that he may be putting her at risk, but claims that he still wants to save her. He asks if she will help him. Livia confidently replies that she will. Hikaru asks if this is true, and Livia replies that given how far he's come, her safety is nothing compared to the risk. Rollins notices traces of blood on the grass and realizes that his opponent is somewhere nearby. The knight shouts that he praises him because he hides himself so well and asks who he is. He asks if he is from his country or from another. Rollins hears sounds coming from the bushes and heads there, saying he won't let him escape. Rollins follows the tracks in the grass and suspects that it is strange where these tracks lead. He assumes they cross to the other side, and he realizes there are many distractions on the road, so he can tell that people didn't walk along it. He realizes that they are most likely still hiding in the grass, and these tracks are a maneuver. He turns sharply, noticing something. He wonders if something moved or if he imagined it. He looks around and concludes that everything is clear and there will be no further attack. Roland says they escaped, and that's the problem. He walks over the horse and picks something up from the floor. Rollins picks up the rock that Hikaru used to knock down his horse and realizes that he did it with just that one rock. The knight decides that he will waste time if he continues to look for them, and considers going to the carriage. He heads towards the carriage when he suddenly senses impending danger. He turns around and sees a huge magic circle above him. Rowan suspects that this is magic and remembers that ordinary magicians can do this up to 1 meter in diameter, and in front of him it is at least 5. He realizes that the level of power is very high. He looks for the spellcaster and sees female hands sticking out from under the grass. He exclaims that he has found him. Roland senses danger in the form of death behind him and realizes that someone is there. Hikaru stabs him, saying that he is strong, because he feels it even like that. Roland turns towards Hikaru and blood starts to flow from his neck wound. Hikaru warns him not to move unless he wants to bleed to death. The young man leaves, noting that an ordinary man would be dead by now, but he will survive. The knight asks him to stop, and asks who he is. Hikaru turns around and smiles and replies that he is Silverface. The knight falls to the ground and the youth leaves. Roland looks after the boy and realizes that the spell is not there now, and if it had been activated, he would not have survived. The knight understands that he was simply pitied, and this realization makes him scream furiously. The carriage in which Hikaru and Livia hid is driving across the bridge. The man says that the inspection is over and they can go. Hikaru breathes a sigh of relief, realizing that they were able to return. He muses that it's a good thing they met those merchants. Livia turns to the boy, asking how his wound is. Hikaru replies that everything is fine. The young man holds a bottle of liquid in his hands and thinks that he found it in the vase, and it restores. He remembers that his wound on his lip healed immediately after he tried it. He believes that in a few hours the hand will be as good as new. The shackles on Livia's hands open, and she looks in surprise at her hands, free of shackles. Hikaru exclaims that it happened sooner than he thought, and says that luck is on their side again. Hikaru asks Livia to wait for him here. He says he has things to do and will be back soon. Livia wants to say something but is shy. Hikaru comes to the guild. The guild employee happily calls him. The young man greets the girl and asks if there are any interesting tasks today. The girl looks at the papers but immediately looks up at the guy. She tells him that he looks pale and asks if something happened. Hikaru replies that he simply didn't sleep enough, because he couldn't fall asleep. The girl says that he seemed to have gone straight home yesterday. The young man lies that he has gone out to drink again. Freya exclaims that this is not fair and that she would have had a drink too. The girl makes a sweet, hurt face, and Hikaru replies that they will go together another time. The girl is embarrassed by such a proposal, but immediately agrees. Hikaru asks what about the mission. The girl remembers it, but says that there is nothing suitable for it now. She claims that she will postpone the task for him as soon as it comes up. Hikaru thanks the girl and bids her farewell. He leaves the guild, and the girl looks after him, puzzled. Hikaru reflects on how he has finished almost everything. He thinks that everything is fine and that he hasn't missed anything since he has repeated everything several times. He comes back to Livia, slams the door behind him and leans against it, breathing a sigh of relief. He realizes that he is finally safe. Livia falls on him, and he opens his eyes and screams loudly in fear. Livia lies on him, and he says that it hurts. Livia apologizes to him. Livia admits that she was scared because he suddenly left somewhere. Hikaru asks him to forgive her and says that he had to do something, but now he is done. Livia asks if this is true. The young man replies that it is absolutely true. Hikaru notices that the girl is all red and turns to her. She says that she wanted to ask him something. The girl asks if there are any sounds when she holds hands with him. Hikaru replies that there are none, but he still makes some loud sounds. The young man adds that perhaps only in this building. Livia says that she will try to be quieter then and grabs the young man by the neck. Livia unexpectedly kisses Hikaru, who is extremely surprised by this action. The girl reminds him that she said she would give him everything if he saved her. Hikaru blushed with embarrassment. He sits down and asks Livia if she's afraid of him. The girl does not understand why she should be afraid of him. Hikaru says that he appeared out of nowhere in a carriage, disappears from time to time, and this makes him worry. He claims that he is treating her wrongly. Livia says that she agrees with his words. She asks, "So what?" Hikaru looks away and tries to say something, but she puts her hand on his face and says that she made him a promise. She asks him if he remembers it. Hikaru replies that he does. Livia confidently declares that whether he is a vampire, a werewolf, or a feared monster, she will not take her words back. Hikaru reflects that she was serious when she said all this. He realizes that she is giving her all. The young man thinks that perhaps Livia was afraid of him. having learned his soul data. He assumes that's why she listened to him all this time, and was constantly in fear that she might be betrayed. However, he realizes that she still believed in him. He asks if she will really give herself all. The girl asks to hold hands. Hikaru and Livia are lying on the bed, and the boy thinks that she really did it. He takes her hand and decides that it is now his turn. Livia remembers that for her, the only world was Yoshiki's world. She reflects on how she was previously forbidden to even go out, because the dark world is just waiting to be used as a weapon. He realizes that in such a world, he gave her a ray of light. She thinks about how Hikaru gave her freedom by pulling her hand. She admits that she knows he is hiding something important, but he didn't have to tell him. She realizes that Hikaru saved her life. She believes that for the first time in her life, she has fallen in love with someone. Livia wakes up. She notices that Hikaru has been looking at her the whole time. The girl asks him, confused, why he was looking at her. The young man cheerfully replies that he admired her sleeping, and Livia blushes all over from his words. She hides under the blanket and says that she is very ashamed. Hikaru asks her why she is ashamed. The girl replies that she should have been quieter and apologizes. She adds that Hikaru's voice is very gentle. Hikaru assures that everything is fine because there were no guests in the rooms to the left, right, above and below. The girl asks if this is true. Hikaru apologizes for making her even more tired after everything that happened yesterday. Livia replies that she is ashamed to talk about it. Hikaru claims that he thought she was already at her limit. He tells her that she had never even left the house before. The girl confirms his words, adding that she feels uncomfortable talking about it. Livia says that she feels like her body is going to fall apart, and Hikaru apologizes. However, Livia says that there is no need to apologize to her. The girl claims that she is physically broken, but is happy inside. They hold hands, and Hikaru remembers that he has not been close to anyone because of depression. He remembers that his parents were far away. He had no friends, and he couldn't even confess to Hazuka. He thinks about how lucky he is, and maybe he was just waiting. Livia calls Hikaru by name. The young man asks Livia if she is interested in knowing how he kept this secret from others. He says that he is far removed from the reality of everyday life. Livia says he doesn't have to tell her about it. Hikaru explains that it is a secret, and he knew he would have to tell her one day. The young man says that it could happen today or tomorrow. He adds that whenever he wants to touch her and asks if she wants it too. The girl asks him again if he wants to touch her, and Hikaru silently nods in agreement. Hikaru asks Livia to listen to him. He wants to tell her about himself and his powers. The girl sits down, ready to listen attentively to his story. The young man declares that he will do everything in his power to protect her. He takes her hand and offers to go into this world with him. Livia raises their hands and says that she will be with him always. Hikaru looks at her and realizes that just waiting is not enough. He believes that if he doesn't make the first move and touch her first, he will never meet someone he can trust with all his heart. A guild member notices Hikaru. She approaches him and tells him that she didn't know he was in the guild right now. Hikaru replies that he came to return some materials he borrowed from one Ken. The girl asks if he has finished reading them yet. Hikaru says that he spent his entire day reading this material. The girl looks at the papers and says that these are old data. The boy says that they did not allow him to take the gray data with him. However, he thinks to himself that, in fact, he read the latest edition, and this was to create an alibi. He recalls that he had several chances to read the latest edition, and he remembered all the information. The girl exclaims in admiration that it is wonderful that he decided to borrow it and study it. Hikaru replies that knowledge is a weapon. The young man asks where Mr. Unken is now. The girl replies that he is absent and offers to return the documents herself. Hikaru asks if she will take the materials, and the girl readily agrees. They ask if the guildmaster is busy. He adds that, looking at them, it seems like they are busy every day. He says that he is just curious about how a person can become a guildmaster. The girl replies that she heard something. She explains that Guildmaster Ami usually assigns experienced adventurers. He admits that she heard that Mr. Unken was not an adventurer. He assumes that he worked for a more official organization. She says that she heard that he retired from the public organization after finishing a big job there and started working at the Adventurers Guild. Hikaru says that he wonders what kind of work he did. The girl looks around and whispers in his ear that this is just her guess. She says she thinks he was a secret agent or assassin under the direct control of the king. Hikaru asks why she thinks that. The girl explains that Mr. Unkin came to the guild about 50 years ago. She asks if this was around the time when the neighboring kingdom of Quinbrand had a change of government, and the emperor of the kingdom at the time was Balasard, known as the Evil King. She says there are rumors that an attempt has been made on his life. The girl says that the Emperor Balasard has publicly declared that he is going to invade and destroy Lombardy. She explains that Lombardy was suffering from the plague at the time and the country was in decline, so it was Lombardy's interest to have Balasard killed. Hikaru replies that the circumstantial evidence is impeccable. She says that's not all. A guild employee says that she was once delivering papers from Mr. Winkin's room, and on his desk lay a letter of thanks from His Majesty. Hikaru says that a letter of thanks from the king is usually given after a major victory in war. The girl says that it seems so, and asks how sure he is of that. Hikaru tells her that he once knew a nobleman. He says that if he is right about Mr. Wenkin being the hero of salvation, he is not sure about Mr. Fleur. The girl replies that it is surprising. Hiraku muses that it was style and skill that killed Wenkin, and he doesn't think that Flair's assumption is far from the truth. He reflects that he must be a very influential person. Flair asks him if he really read all this material. Hikaru confidently replies that he has read it. The girl suggests conducting a small test. She asks what is an effective way to defeat the filthy doom that lives in the swamps. Hikaru replies that it is an ice-type spirit magic, and if they freeze them, they can easily destroy him. Freya asks about the benefits of yarrow herb powder. Hikaru says it eliminates nerve paralysis. The girl asks to describe the nearest dungeons in the province of Pond, and the young man replies that there are 2 of them. He explains that the first one is located 5 days away by carriage, north of the underground city of the ancient godmen. He explains that it is under the control of the guild in the state, and only adventurers of rank E and above are allowed to enter, and that several undead monsters have been discovered there. He wants to tell about the second thing, the Forest of Confusion, when suddenly a girl appears near them. She says that defeated monsters in the dungeon are transformed into magical spirit stones, and thus form the dungeon industry. She turns to Hikaru, intending to tell him something, but someone grabs her hand and asks what she is doing. Pia pulls her hand and tells her that they need to go. Hikaru tells Freya that Pola and the others seem to be doing well. She replies that it seems so. Hikaru asks how this matter ended. Freya says that those adventurers seem to have disappeared. Hikaru suggests that they plan to hide somewhere until things calm down. The girl asks if he really read the book. She closes the book and suggests that next time they read the new edition of the old version. He wants to say what he means, but he doesn't finish. Freya suddenly says it doesn't matter and leaves. At the inn, Hikaru sits on the bed as Livia tells him to think about it. Livia shows off her new suit, and Hikaru says it suits her perfectly. The girl looks unhappy, and Hikaru asks what happened, because it suits her very well. Livia replies that she is just wondering if Hikaru is good at choosing clothes for girls. The boy says that it is not so. He says he was thinking about her while sorting through his clothes, and noticed it by accident. The girl asks if he was thinking about her. The boy claims he was thinking about her all day. Livia asks if these are paid clothes. Hikaru assures that everything is fine. He reflects on how he has had to spend a lot of money, but he still has enough money to live on for some time. He remembers that he also bought something, namely, a special product that she will need in the future. He explains that this stone contains magical powers belonging to the evil ones, and is supposed to have a contraceptive effect. Hikaru believes that Livia expects certain things from him, so it's better to be prepared in advance. The young man tells Livia that tomorrow he will take her with him and they will buy everything they need. He claims that he will need several changes of clothes, and he cannot even buy underwear. Hikaru assures Livia that everything is okay. He tells her that it doesn't matter where she goes now, she can choose her own path. Livia replies that she doesn't care where she goes. She just wants an adventure. Hikaru admits that he was thinking of telling her about tomorrow's adventures. Livia is excited about his story. Hikaru first asks her how she feels. The girl replies that she's a little sore, but much better. She starts to say something to him, but he stops her, saying that that's not what he meant. Livia says he is right and claims she was not attractive enough. Hikaru denies her words, insisting that she is beautiful and attractive enough. She grabs his hand and says his name. They lie down on the bed, and Hikaru thinks that it looks like the stone he acquired will be useful today. Freya greets Aurora, wishing her good morning. Aurora greets her back and says that Mr. Unkin is calling her. Freya asks if something is wrong. Mr. Unken tells her that he has some information for her. He tells her that the mission that was given to the guild to escort them to the capital failed. Freya asks in surprise what this means. She assumes that they were attacked by barbarians and then destroyed by a very strong monster. However, the man says that her assumption is wrong. The girl says that Rogza himself kidnapped her then. Mr. Unken replies that such a possibility would have been possible, but not this time. He says that Rogza reported to the capital guild himself. The man tells from Robes's words that when they had their second stop, he decided to look in on her to check, but she was no longer there. The girl notes that he is a brave man, since he went all the way to the capital guild to report. Mr. Unken says that his action would be very reckless if he were guilty, because it is risky. He asks her if she agrees with this. The girl answers that she agrees, and wonders where the girl disappeared to then. The man replies that they wouldn't be in so much trouble if they knew. He says that there are two things that complicate the case. He says that the first is the word of the witness. Mr. Unken says that Roga tried to take the key from the coachman by force. The girl asks why he did it. The man replies that he has developed an interest in the woman he was accompanying. Freya notes that this is somehow strange. The man replies that he is still a sea-crank adventurer. The girl asks if there is anything else that complicates the matter. He tells that in fact, one knight set out to chase the carriage, but someone attacked him and he could not reach it. The girl asks who that knight was. Mr. Unken says it is Captain Rollins de Farkin, and the girl cannot believe it. She states that he would not have been defeated by someone inexperienced. The man says that according to the knight, the one who attacked him was a child who called himself Silverface. The girl screams in shock. She says it's not normal for a child to defeat Kensei. She says it sounds like what Nogusa said and tries to find the right word. Mr. Unken asks if she thinks these events are connected. Freya replies that she thinks they are related, but that the child must be very talented. The man says that he still can't believe he beat Rollins. The girl says that this needs to be found out in more detail. She asks if he knows anything else. Mr. Unken claims that he knows nothing else, and notes that she thinks the same as Aurora. Freya confirms his words, wondering if this is all he wanted to ask her. The man asks Freya to listen to him and asks if she has anyone in mind. He asks if she knows a skilled, strong, adventurous young man. Freya remembers Hikaru, but then thinks that he spent the whole day reading a reference book, and tells the man that no one comes to mind. Mr. Unken says he will ask Gloria again, although he assumes the answer will be the same. Livia admires the city, and Hikaru offers to show it to her. The girl happily agrees. They walk through the streets of the city, and the young man tells that in that place he bought various attributes, and in this store he bought weapons, so the short sword is from there. The girl enthusiastically reacts to everything in the city. Hikaru is thinking that she still has a lot to learn and needs to watch enough and cool down first. He points his finger at something. He shows her the Adventurers Guild, and the girl replies that she even dreamed about it. Hikaru notices that something happened to Livia. The girl cries, saying that she is so glad to be alive. Hikaru thinks to himself that she is so happy that she is even crying. Livia asks if they will attack her with the words that she forgot herself here, if she goes there. Hikaru remembers his unpleasant incident and answers that there are such people there. He says that they will go to the guild sometime. The girl asks if it is possible. The young man replies that he is an adventurer and it would be strange not to bring her to the guild, since she cooperates with him. Livia exclaims that she would very much like to visit her. Hikaru says that next time and the girl is upset, but he adds that perhaps in a few days, and Livia is glad that it will be so soon. Hikaru says he's shown the main thing. Livia calls him, claiming that something smells delicious. He agrees with her words and notices a bakery nearby. He says that it is soon lunchtime and offers to buy something. They sit on a bench and eat the buns they bought. Livia asks him if they are going to continue their walk. Hikaru replies that he has plans and suggests going outside the city. Livia's eyes light up, and she asks if this is a trip. Hikaru says it's preparation and he wants to see her magic power. Livia and Hikaru go outside the city. Livia asks if there are many monsters in this area, and Hikaru says there aren't any, so there's no need to worry about them. He says that they will soon be outside the city. The girl sighs tiredly, and Hikaru asks her to look. They see a beautiful, huge field in front of them, which they both admire. Livia asks how big this field is. The young man answers that you can ride a horse around it in one day. The girl is surprised, saying that it's great. Livia asks Hikaru if this is where she should use magic. He asks her to show her soul card before she begins. She hands her card to him. He compares his card with hers, thinking that not all common people have such a card, but mostly aristocrats. He says that her card is different from the guild card. He notices that there are no statistics on her soul card and asks her about it. The girl replies that she is free at the moment. She asks Hikaru why he needed her card. He explains that he was interested in the blessing item. He asks her what the inscription means, Shinto ritual. The girl says that she thinks it is about the amount of donations for the holidays held at the temple. The young man asks what about the blessing. Livia asks for a second, claiming that she will write it now. She writes her blessing on the ground and says it goes something like this. Hikaru reads it carefully. He asks what is the cause of magic power. The girl does not understand what he is talking about. He says he's just curious, thinking to himself that there's something like that written on her soul board. Livia admits that she doesn't know for sure, and her magic just grows on its own. He clarifies what he means by it growing on its own. She replies that she will tell him this after she shows him her magic. Hikaru agrees, and she goes into the field. Hikaru reflects that if we are going to talk about magic, then it is about spirits, because they rule this world. He thinks about how there are 4 subspecies of them: fire, water, wind, and earth, and the magic of spirits enhances the normal magic and physical strength that a person has. Livia uses magic, asking to come to the call. Her spirit of fire and uses a fireball. Livia says that it is from Migas and that it is the weakest of fire magic. Hikaru is surprised, saying that he imagined it a little differently. Livia asks again if he imagined it, and Hikaru agrees. He remembers that Robes had a level 4 sword and a level 3 earth, and Unken had a level 6 short sword, and if Livia had a level 5, that says a lot. He thinks that magic related to weapons and spirits is a little different. The girl clarifies that it means he won't be afraid of her. Hikaru replies that of course he won't. The girl breathes a sigh of relief. She admits that she was so nervous and afraid that he would distance himself from her after seeing this. He assures her that this will not happen. Hikaru says that he understands her, and that he was also scared when he told her about his power. She looks at the soul board, and he claims that her powers are beyond normal. Hikaru says that perhaps it was not by chance that they met. Livia, touched by his words, hugs him. She says that it is good that he became her savior, and claims that she is not afraid of him at all. Livia asks him if he will not leave her. Hikaru promises that he will not leave. Hikaru notices someone coming, assuming they sensed magic. He realizes they need to get away from this field quickly and suggests Livia return to the city. Hikaru asks her how many times she can attack with that move, and she replies she can attack around 30 times without resting. The young man marvels at such strength and wonders if he can do it. Livia says she thinks he needs to practice. Hikaru asks his fire-spirit frame Migas to come to his call and uses Fireball. The fireball does not appear, and Hikaru notices that there is nothing. Livia suggests that he has not yet strengthened his contact with the spirits, and as she said, he is out of practice. The boy asks how it was for her. She replies that she has had it for a long time. She remembers that she first noticed it when she was 6 years old. Livia remembers being nearly run over by a horse, and then having a simple burst of magic. The horse, its rider, and its maids fainted, and Livia says that other people suffered because of her. Someone whispers something in a man's ear, and he asks if it's true. He notices that this is how it works. The maid tells little Livia that her father is calling her. She accompanies her. The man says that he has been waiting for her and asks her to go into some room. Livia is scared when she sees chained monsters in front of her. She tells her that her father began experimenting with her powers and brought all sorts of monsters. Her father tells Livia to show her power. She recalls it as a result of experiments. It turned out that she was closest to fire magic, and her father was happy that he could use it, and at the same time was afraid of its power. He ordered his employees that if anything happened, they should take action immediately. Livia explains that this is why she was locked in that mansion and was not allowed to go outside. She says that she was even talked about in the capital. Hikaru thinks about her father treating his daughter so meanly. He recalls hearing that he wanted to use it in the war against the Kevine Brand Empire. Hikaru reflects on how he could, even though he was dependent on her power, take away her freedom like a weapon. He thinks it is too cruel. He realizes that the past is in the past, and now Livia is free. He thanks her for telling him this. She replies that it is him. He asks if he can ask her more about magic. Hikaru asks how much control she has over it. Livia asks what he is talking about. He explains that she said that the spell was one of the weakest, but it is too strong for the weak. He says that if a normal mage had done it, the result would have been different. Livia replies that he is right, but she cannot make her power weaker or lesser. She says she doesn't know what he meant exactly, but she can choose the direction. Hikaru replies that he roughly understands what she means. Hikaru thinks that her fire is 5, and the higher the number, the stronger her fire magic. The boy asks if she can change the shape of her magic, like making a square or a triangle. Livia replies that she hasn't even thought about that. Hikaru suggests they try it some other time. He claims that, unfortunately for them, it would be too noticeable in this place. He realizes that it is dangerous to throw magic around. It will be seen right away. He tells her that next time she will also need to consider her blessing. Livia tells Hikaru that he is just like a scientist, studying, analyzing. He asks if it is true. Hikaru asks Livia if it bothers her, like she's being interrogated. Livia says there is a little, but only a little. Hikaru announces that he has one more question. Livia tells him to ask. He asks if she originally had that much magic. Livia replies that she used to have less. She explains that she hasn't used it much, but she felt it growing. Hikaru muses that since she can attack 30 times without resting with that move, she must have at least an 11 in magic power. However, he recalls that her soul board was at 0, and her soul state was at 6. He speculates that when her soul state rose, it affected the fire spirit's magic as well. Hikaru asks if she did anything to raise her soul state to 6. Livia replies that she didn't. He realizes that it was automatic. He guesses that it developed with age. The older you get, the stronger. Hikaru thinks that if Livia had practiced more, her numbers would have been much higher. He thinks that only her spiritual magic has increased. Livia calls him sensei and asks if he figured it out. He says the more he learns, the more interesting it becomes. Livia and Hikaru laugh. Hikaru invites her to come back, and she agrees. The young man thinks that she has been through a lot, and that he wants her to live happily now. He wants him and Livia to live happily together. In Minerca, 2 men are sitting on the floor sorting tomatoes. A man approaches them and says that things are going well. One of the men declares that their tomatoes are the tastiest in the whole kingdom, and his comrade says that he is right. The man says Apollo was the one who handled it best. He closes his mouth and apologizes. The man replies that she was indeed good at it. The men argue among themselves about who is to blame. The man tells them not to argue and that they are done for today so they can rest. Suddenly, an earthquake occurs. The man, barely able to stand on his feet, asks if it was an earthquake. The other man replies that it does not look like an earthquake, and says that he has a very bad feeling about this. The man holds up a bag, asking if it is really the red rabbit's entrails. Hikaru replies that it is. The man shouts that he is a good boy and asks to give the money back another time. Hikaru agrees and leaves, seeing how happy he is. Hikaru walks through the city and notices how quickly his day has passed. He remembers that today they managed to test Livia's abilities and hunt a red rabbit. Livia stayed at the hotel, and Hikaru thinks that he actually wanted to go to the guild with her, but it was too risky. He decides that he would rather make their lives easier. He opens the door and enters the Adventurers Guild. He notices that Freya has a huge line and says that she is busy. He notices Gloria smiling at him, who calls him to her and goes to her and goes to her. He hands over the bag and says that this is what he brought today. Gloria notices that it is a red rabbit and asks him to wait a little. She returns and gives him his 9,000 gilan. Hikaru thanks her. Gloria praises him, claiming that he will soon rise in rank. Hikaru replies that she motivates him, as always. She assures him that she has no ulterior motives and remembers that she wanted to tell him something. Gloria suddenly asks where he was the day before yesterday. Hikaru is shocked that she asked him this question. The girl looks at him with suspicion in her eyes. Freya reminds Hikaru that he studied the day before yesterday. Hikaru confirms her words, claiming that he studied the basics of an adventurer. Gloria tells Freya that she should study them too. Hikaru realizes that it was dangerous if he couldn't react right away. He wonders why she asked this question so suddenly. He assumes that she is checking something concerning Livia. Freya asks Hikaru if he has time later. He replies that he does. The girl states that then they will meet in 30 minutes, and in the meantime she will close the guild, and Hikaru agrees. Gloria approaches him, asking if he is truly a simple citizen. Hikaru replies that he is a budding adventurer and still has much to learn. Gloria warns Freya that he does not know how to drink, advising him to be careful. The young man replies that he did not even think of drinking with her and says goodbye to Gloria. Freya and Hikaru are walking down the street when the girl reveals that, in fact, Mr. Winkin called her today. Freya reminds him that he was interested in that case. Hikaru remembers and asks if there is anything new. He says how can it be that a man has disappeared and the enemy hasn't even attacked? He wonders if she's talking about Roland's, knowing it's hard to admit that he was defeated by a young man. Hikaru asks if Roland's was killed. Freya explains that he was badly wounded but survived. Hikaru thinks about how he survived after all. Freya asks Hikaru if he thinks the incidents of selling the girl and the attack on the night are somehow connected. The young man answers that, if you think about it, they are not. Hikaru thinks that there is a high probability that Gloria also knew about this, and that is why she called him. The young man asks if the Adventurers Guild is looking for the culprit. Freya replies that she is not looking, since this is already a matter for the entire country. Hikaru points out that it appears the guild failed to complete the task. Freya agrees, saying that Mr. Winkin seemed worried. Hikaru says that it is natural, since it concerns him too. Freya agrees with him and announces that they have arrived. She points to the bench and says that she lives here. Hikaru recognizes the shop. Freya says that her family runs a bakery and suggests that he stop by sometime. She assures him that their food is delicious. Hikaru tells her that he bought buns from them today, and Freya is surprised. Hikaru claims that they were indeed delicious, and Freya thanks him. Freya, shyly, says that she wouldn't mind having lunch together sometime. Hikaru asks her again, but Freya says it's okay and runs home. Hikaru thinks about her words and remembers that he made a promise to her. He realizes that he can't fulfill it now. Hikaru decides that he needs to gather more information about the situation, so he says that he will do so. The next day at the Adventurers Guild, Paula asks her comrades what they will do with the guild. The girl replies that she will entrust it to both of them, and Pia suggests a reorganization, a squad of 3. The team discusses whether this makes them look weak, but decides that it is better to have 3 of them than to trust just anyone. Pia asks if Paula still believes that there are normal guys who are adventurers after that incident. Holly replies that she can only trust Hikaru. Pia says that he does not consider them a guild. Hola says there's nothing wrong with that. Pia says that's not the point. A wounded man enters the guild. He asks if this is the Adventurers Guild. He is unable to stand on his feet due to the wounds he received and falls to his knees. The adventurers ask him if he is okay. Pia turns around wondering what is going on. Pola recognizes the man. She shouts that it is a man from the village named Pippin. Pola approaches the man, calling him by name, and he immediately recognizes her. She asks him what happened. He replies that he is fine and has something very important to tell him. Pippin says the dungeon is overrun with monsters. Pola asks again, and the man shouts that their village is in danger. Pippin is sitting at a table, and a group of adventurer girls are standing around him. Mr. Unkin sits down opposite him. He says that he is the guildmaster and asks what business he has with him. The man replies that it concerns yesterday's event. He says that there was a strong earthquake towards evening. He says that at the moment of the earthquake, wounded adventurers came out of the dungeon and ran to their village for help. The man claims that, according to them, huge monsters emerged from the dungeon mysterious forest, and there were many of them. Pippin explains that the mysterious forest is close to their village, so the village is in great danger, so he was sent to the guild, and another one to Lazarek. The guildmaster asks the man to tell them everything that the escaped adventurer said. Pippin replies that what he said now is all the information. Because the adventurer died, all the adventurers became nervous at this news and began to look at each other. Pippin reports that he also said something about a middle level of the dungeon. He admits that he doesn't quite understand this and asks what this middle level is. Mr. Unkin explains that there are 2 types of dungeons. One is safe, and the other is where monsters live, especially floor bosses. Pippin asks about the 4 bosses. The guild leader replies that they are monsters that very little is known about. He says that it looks like an anthill. Mr. Unkin claims that the mysterious forest is just such a dungeon, and there are 5 floors and several entrances and exits. The man says that the first and second floors have a lot of vegetation, so they are called the green floor, and the third and fourth floors are covered with roots, so they are called the root floor. About the fifth floor, he says that it is completely made of earth, so it is called the earth floor. The guild leader explains that different monsters live on different floors, and the one he was talking about is the root one. Mr. Unken muses that the adventurers have only reached the fifth floor so far, so there may be floors beyond that. He asks Freya about the monsters. She reports that on the first floors there is a branch bat and a small basilisk of E rank, and further on, a monster of D rank, wandering, evil eye, and something else. She announces that there is a palace and a small wyvern of rank C living there. The adventurers get nervous, saying that things are bad. The girl asks the guild leader if there have been cases where monsters have come out of their dungeons. Mr. Unken replies that there have been. He says that it is said that floor bosses eat monsters on their floors and thus replenish mania. But normal monsters can come out, unlike floor bosses. He says that usually dungeons are found by the monsters that roam nearby. The guild leader turns to Pippin and advises him to have a good rest today. He promises that tomorrow this information will definitely reach the capital, and then everything will become clear. The events take place the next day in the capital of Ponsanium. Knight Rollins is practicing with a sword when a girl approaches him and asks if he feels better yet. She asks if he is free. The man replies that he cannot practice yet. Rollins calls the girl Her Royal Highness Castoria. She repeats that she asked if he was free. Rollins picks it up and says he is. Her Highness Castoria says she is glad he is well. The man thanks her for her concern. She asks her knights to step back a bit, but they resist. She tells them that the country's strongest swordsman stands before them, and asks if they still have doubts. The knights say that the order is accepted. Rollins asks her what happened. Castoria replies that information came in yesterday. She asks him if he has heard about the mysterious forest. Rollins says he knows and asks if she is talking about the same case, and if it has already been decided who will be sent. The girl reports that her father has decided to leave the business. She says that the monsters are quite dangerous, but do not pose a threat, since the floor bosses will not be able to reproduce further, and the option is being considered that the number of monsters will simply decrease. Rollins calls this decision strange because he heard that there is a village nearby. Castoria agrees with him, saying that they need to be evacuated. Rollins wonders about the evacuation and asks if they will involve the guild. She replies that there are no plans to use high-ranking adventurers. The man asks her if she wants war with the Queensland Empire, and the girl replies that she does. Castoria says that it looks like the one who just got a big wound will have to work hard. The man tells her not to worry, because she is already fine. The girl admits that she finds her father's behavior strange lately. Rollins tells her that she doesn't need to talk about it. Castoria recalls the matter with the Count's daughter and says that now he is abandoning civilians. She asks if the war with the Empire will really bring them a bright and peaceful future, but receives no answer. Mr. Unken reads the order and scolds the king. Gloria asks him to be careful with his words and says that since this is how it is, there is only one thing left for them to do. The man replies that he knows it. Gloria tells him that Pippin is waiting for him on the first floor. They head towards him and Pippin asks for news. Mr. Unken says that it is bad, because there will be no help. The guild leader reports that there was a message that they should not send adventurers of rank C and above. He says that the only thing they can do is evacuate the locals. Pippin asks in despair if that is all they can do. Pippin shouts that it means they have to abandon the village. Pia exclaims, "What kind of nonsense is going on?" The guild leader asks who she is. Pia tells them that they are the same people who, like Pippin, come from Menark. She explains that if they abandon the village, they are abandoning their tomato crop, and that cannot be allowed. Pippin says she is right and asks if it is not the knight's job to save the people in such situations. Mr. Unken claims that he cannot answer for them. Pia wants to hit the guildmaster, but her comrades stop her, shouting that she won't solve anything this way. She clenches her jaw and agrees, stating that she will then destroy these monsters, as it is the duty of adventurers. Pia states that it is good that their rank is not high, but Freya shouts that she cannot allow this. Freya explains that they are G-rank adventurers, and only those of E-rank and adventurers, and only those of E-rank and above can enter the mysterious forest. Pia insists that she will not go into the dungeon, but will only protect her village. She turns to Paula and Priscilla, asking what they will do. Paula and Priscilla say they will go with her. Pia says that it is decided then, and suggests they set off. Freya shouts that this cannot be done. Freya asks the guildmaster to stop them, but he says they are not against the rules. He calls Gloria, and she says about the special rear. Gloria announces that she has written destruction for ranks D and E and escort and cover for F and G. Unken says that she, like everything else, reads people's actions in advance. Freya understands that the chief has not forgotten about them. Mr. Unken says that it is too early to rejoice. He reports that they only have 5 people in the guild that they can trust to destroy, and 10 people to accompany them. Gloria asks about the Capital Guild, saying that they can send people. The guild leader says that he will call them, but they will not count on them. Mr. Unken looks at the adventurers and says that he is giving them a task right now. He asks who will go to Menark. In the Capitals Guild, 3 adventurers stand near the notice board, talking about the mysterious forest. The adventurer says he came to see if there was a task, but there wasn't one. The man asks him if maybe it's not such a big deal. The other adventurer tells him to look and says they're back, a team of female adventurers called the 4 Eastern Stars. The adventurers discuss how Solus has an incredible aura, has a calm, strong expression, and is the very personification of the party. They say that Shufi has healing magic and that she might eventually rise to the top of the religion. They notice Sarah has a warm smile and even assume that they might get to know her. The adventurer says that the girl named Sarika is always wearing a hood. But someone claims to be sure that there is a cute face hidden underneath. Solus asks the guild employee what happened, because there are too many people in the guild. The girl replies that monsters have emerged in the mysterious forest. Solus tells his team that they need to leave immediately. The girl stops them. She explains that there is a message that guilds should not send adventurers of C rank and above. Solus says that's why there are no tasks. The girl apologizes to her. Solus replies that it's okay and thanks her for the important information. They leave the guild and Sarah asks Solus what they will do. She replies that the government does not want them involved. She adds that this means that the task is quite dangerous and asks if they agree with this. She suggests that the girls go to Menark. Hikaru asks Livia what she thinks. Livia looks at her hands and says that he got up. The soul board says that her soul development level has increased from 6 to 8. Hikaru suggests that tomorrow she can reach her goal of 11. Livia asks if they are done for today. Hikaru says he decided to dig around in the ground a bit because there are a lot of black moonflowers, which are good for kidney problems. Livia asks if he's going to give the flowers to the guild. Hikaru replies that he's going to take them somewhere else. There are bags of samples on the table, and someone says they can't believe they brought their samples to him. Kelbeck, the face of the Thieves Guild, sits on a chair and asks if there's any hidden reason behind this. Hikaru explains that he just doesn't want to attract attention. Kelbeck laughs, stating that he said so. He picks up a moonflower and admits that he didn't know they were good for the kidneys. He asks Hikaru where he learned that. Hikaru replies that he knew someone who knew a lot about witchcraft and medicinal herbs. He says that this acquaintance is no longer alive. Kelbeck looks at him strangely and asks if he always wanders around completely alone, but communicates in his own way. Hikaru replies that it is none of his business. Kelbeck asks if the actor he borrowed did his job. Hikaru says he did. Kelbeck says he heard something interesting about it. He says that apparently there was a lady in the carriage they stopped who disappeared without a trace. He wonders how she managed to get away without anyone noticing. Kelbeck remembers that when someone first entered his room, no one noticed. He asks Hikaru if it was a coincidence or an accident. Hikaru asks him what he means with a scary look. Kelbeck asks him not to make such a funny face and claims he's joking. Hikaru says he's not, likes unfunny jokes. Kelbeck apologizes, saying that he simply borrowed a man from them. He says that Hikaru is a real pain in the ass. The boy replies that they will have good deals as long as they are both the buyer and the shop owner. Kelbeck agrees with him. He tells Hikaru that he is selling him several grimoires. He shows a grimoire of earth magic for breaching walls and fire and wind magic combined with explosion magic. He also shows several restorative grimoires made from gold by the temple's priests, which Hikaru believes may prove useful. 2 days later, in the Adventurers Guild, someone talks about a flood in the dungeon. Hikaru says that's why Paula and her family's hometown is in danger. Freya says that's true, Hikaru thinks that he didn't think that such a situation would arise in the last 2 days. Freya reminds him that he is a rank adventurer, so he shouldn't even think about going to the Forest of Deception, since the entry restriction there is D rank. Hikaru recalls this and Freya clarifies that he read the entire material. Hikaru calls this interesting, clarifying that the kingdom is abandoning the Forest of Deception. He explains that it is an artificial dungeon created by a rare creature, a dungeon master, who generates monsters using magical spirit stones as a data carrier, specifying that it costs a lot of money. Freya replies that no, it is nothing. She says that dungeons produce resources, but a mine with a good vein is still worth more. Hikaru asks what happens. The kingdom now needs something more valuable than a dungeon. Freya says she won't comment on that. He asks if she thinks they're going to start a war. He says he understands and everything is fine. Freya shouts his name. He asks if Paula and the others are already on their way to Manelka. Freya says yes. They left in a carriage the day before yesterday afternoon. He says he understands and thanks. Hikaru leaves the guild and returns to the inn. He says that's why, and turns to Lavia, asking if she's listening. She looks at her hands. Hikaru realizes that he can manipulate other people's soul charts so that they can be useful to him. He believes that this does not mean that the people he empowered will not become his enemies, and realizes that this power can only be used on people he truly trusts. Lavia says that no one really noticed and asks if he knows what happened to her. Hikaru explains that he assigned one each to life detection and magic detection. He says that if he wanted, he could assign one to each of the other two blocking abilities. But there are few people capable of detecting magic, so he left it all up to the blockade, which can deceive the general public. He asks Lavia what she thinks of the Forest of Deception. Lavia looks upset, and Hikaru wonders what's wrong with her, since dungeons must be her favorite pastime. She asks what he wants to do. She assumes he wants to go and help Paula. Hikaru replies that if Paula dies in the process, it would be too sad. Lavia calls out to Hikaru. She yells, asking if he likes Paula. He asks what she means. She says that she said she would give him everything. But even if Hikaru likes another woman, it means he needs to prepare his heart. Hikaru calmly replies that he doesn't like Paula. Lavia calms down and asks him if he likes her. Hikaru clarifies what she meant, but Lavia hides her face in her hands and squats down. Hikaru assures her that everything is fine and says that he likes her. He asks if she thought he was in love with Paula. Lavia replies that she doesn't think so. The next day, at the Adventurers Guild, Freya thinks about how she hasn't seen Hikaru since this morning. She wonders if he has gone to Manelka. Gloria asks her if she sees her. Freya notices Gloria and screams that she scared her. Gloria says that she wanted to say something. Gloria asks if she heard about what happened yesterday at the Royal Guild. Freya says about the royal capital and asks why. Gloria whispers something in her ear. Freya exclaims if this is true. Gloria replies that it is, and she is sure that they have taken a step in that direction. She says that her pet is safe and asks if she thinks the same. Hikaru muses that at this rate he's sure they'll catch up to Paula and the others soon. Lavia tells Hikaru to look in the direction of the smoke. There is a house burning and two men standing near it. The man yells, asking what's going on and if it's a fire. Hikaru thinks that he's sure he's seen these guys before. Hikaru says that means no way and tells Lavia that they need to go. The girls are sitting in the burning house. Pia says that they attacked them because they hate them. Paula says that she can't take it anymore. Pia tells Priscilla to go ahead, adding that they will capture as many of them as possible. Priscilla asks her to wait. She says that if she wants to go now or waits until the last minute, the result will be the same. Priscilla says to wait until the walls come down. She states that if they wait any longer, she will shoot them at the right moment. Pia suggests that Priscilla just go through the main door. Someone says there is a better way. Hikaru suddenly appears next to them and says that if you go out from the east side, there will be no one there. The girls are surprised to see him. They look at him, and Paula asks if he is Hikaru. She asks how he got there. He promises to explain later and urges them on, telling them that the hut is about to collapse. They unharness through the window and the hut burns down completely. Hikaru realizes that it was close. Karu suggests that they leave quickly. He thinks that they only need to convince Lavia, who is hiding, to blow up the hut with her magic, and then they will get scared and run away. Everyone starts to leave, but Pia shouts that they must be joking. She says that they can't just run away while they keep getting beaten. The girls tell them to get out of this place as fast as they can. The men notice them and shout that they are running away. Pia draws her sword and prepares to fight when a girl appears in front of them on horseback. Hikaru notices a white horse and wonders who it could be. The girl asks the man what they are doing here. He lies that they were attacked in the hut. The girl replies that they don't look like bandits, and it's hard not to notice that they were trying to burn the hut down and attack the people inside. She says that she is Solus Land of the 4 Stars of the East, and that he is now under arrest. Paula asks them if they are heading to Minark. Solus replies that she heard that adventurers from the guild were here. He says that there was no quest, but they couldn't sit idly by. The girls thank her for her help, but Hikaru wonders about the fact that they went to save the village. The girls praise Solus and her team. She looks at the bandits and says that they dealt with them. She asks about Hikaru, and he wants to answer, but Paula introduces him herself. He says that he was also thinking of going to Minark. He asks if they met an uncle on a horse on the road. Solus replies that they met him and learned about them from him. Hikaru muses that it's a good thing Livia doesn't use magic, or they would have been discovered quickly. He remembers that they were the ones who were supposed to be accompanying them, so there's a good chance they saw her in the picture. He thinks that even though a Sea-Crank party came then, after looking at Solus's soul card, he realizes that she is much stronger than them. He notices that her sword skill is level 5, so she is not far from Roland's, who is level 6. He asks about the rest of her team. She tells him that they went to investigate the area, as there may still be bandits left. He realizes that if 4 people like her get together, it will be problematic, so they should distance themselves. Paula asks Hikaru if he is also going to Minark. He replies that it was spontaneous. Solus asks if he's planning to go to a territory infested with monsters. She is surprised by his confidence and asks if maybe he just didn't know. Pia says that everything will be fine because they are with them. She offers Solus to stay in Minark. She says that her father is the village chief, so their house is big. Paula offers Hikaru to stay with them, but he refuses. He says he'll do things a little differently, and the man on horseback will come back. Solus suggests they wait together. She says that the man did say he'd call for help, so it won't be soon. Paula supports her words. However, Hikaru thanks her for the offer, but assures him that he can handle it himself. Solus tells him not to refuse, asking if he is stubborn too. Hikaru replies that he is stubborn too. Hikaru replies that he is just an introvert and very shy, especially around girls. He says goodbye and leaves. The other girls head towards the village, and Pia shouts that Minark is already in sight. The men in the village notice them and shout that adventurers have arrived. Pia apologizes to Solus for their behavior, but she replies that it is a natural reaction and she has nothing to be ashamed of. Pia admires her, and Paula thinks that it was Hikaru who saved them. Someone tells her not to make such a gloomy face. Shufi says that they came to help, so he suggests putting on a confident face. Paula recognizes Shufi Bloomfield, who like her has healing magic. She looks at her chest and is upset by the difference in their sizes. She looks at the girl and thinks about how she is always hooded, and wonders what kind of person she is. The man says that the rumors were true, and Paula recognizes her father. He, noticing Paula, tells her that he has a lot to tell her, but for now, asks Shufi to walk her out herself. Paula is surprised. She thought he would scold her for becoming an adventurer without telling him. She realizes that thanks to Shufi, he himself is not so evil. Hikaru and Livia are sitting in the forest near a fire. The girl asks him about the 4 eastern stars. He replies that he cannot understand, but he knows one thing: he cannot relax. He says that they are strong adventurers. Livia asks if this is true. He talks about Solus, the leader of the party, saying that she is a good conversationalist and that her every move is elegant. He wants to say something else, but seeing Livia's hurt expression, he asks what happened. Livia turns away and says nothing. He says he wants to talk to her because it's important to him. Livia says she doesn't mean that. Hikaru asks her to tell him. Livia is embarrassed to talk. She says that when she started praising other girls, she found it hard to breathe and felt a tightness in her chest. Hikaru asks if she means to say that she is jealous of him. Livia exclaims that she is jealous and suggests that he probably feels uncomfortable, but Hikaru just laughs. Livia yells, asking why he's laughing, and exclaims that she didn't want to talk but he forced her to. Hikaru apologizes, saying that he'll say something then, too. He tells Livia that the reason he refused to stay with them in the village was because he wanted to spend time with her and wants to continue that way. She asks him if he's upset that she was jealous. Hikaru replies that he's glad because no one has ever thought that about him. He adds that since it's her, he's doubly glad. She lays her head on his shoulder and says that it's good that he was the one who saved her. He puts his arm around her shoulders and they remain sitting like that. In the village, the crowd is shouting, and Pia asks everyone to calm down. The men say that there are cool adventurers there, and they want to be around too. Pia says that they are not wrong, that they are cool, but they are talking to the headman, and they should not disturb them. The man tells Pia that she has changed somehow. The man tells her that she used to be so calm and nice. She asks what difference it makes to them before. He says that it is hard to see an adventurer, and Pia asks what he's even talking about. At this time, Hikaru and Livia sneak into the village chief's house unnoticed. The village chief tells the adventurers that he thought they would completely clear out the dungeon, but Saluj replies that it is impossible. He says that there are only 4 adventurers, and there are over 100,000 monsters. She adds that this dungeon has no map, and this factor can hit them hard. Soluz informs that they will hold off the monsters while they evacuate to another nearby city. The man replies that it is easy to say, but it is harvest season. He asks what they should do with the tomatoes. Soluz replies that tomatoes are no substitute for life. The village chief says that they can do whatever they want, but he won't leave the village. Soluz says that they will create a team of strong adventurers, and then they will begin. Sarah approaches the door and Soluz asks her what happened. Sarah replies that someone is listening and opens the door. She goes out into the hallway and sees that there is no one there. Soluz asks if they are in that room. Sarah claims that if they had escaped, it would have been heard. Sarah says that she is mistaken, but Soluz claims that this almost never happens to her. Hikaru and Livia hide, and the boy realizes that it was dangerous. He reflects on what he did right, that he opened that door early. He thinks that hiding helps, but still, one must be vigilant. He looks at Sarah's soul card and realizes that it's best not to go up against a B rank. He notices that she has the intuition skill and remembers that those who have this skill well developed cannot expose concealment, but can sense its presence. He decides to be more careful in the future. Suddenly, the girl shouts at them to stop. She points the door, suggesting that they might be there. Hikaru wonders who that voice belongs to. The girl asks Soluz to open the door. She asks if that's her job, and Sarah says she thinks there's no one there. Soluz goes to open the door and claims that it would not be surprising if there was some curious person who wanted to eavesdrop on the conversation. She opens the door and looks around the room and, noticing an open window, says that he ran away. The girl says that it seems like that was the case. Soluz asks Sarika if she is convinced. She replies that she is convinced and leaves. Livia and Hikaru are sitting on a bench outside. Livia admits that she was scared and thought they would be found out. She asks Hikaru why he has such a face. He says that the hooded girl's name is Sarika Tenue. Livia calls her last name unusual. Livia says that what was surprising was her black hair, because she has never seen anyone with that color hair except Hikaru. She turns to him and asks him in surprise if she understood correctly. Hikaru replies that there is no doubt that she, like him, is from another world. Livia asked the boy in surprise if she was from another world like him. Hikaru answered that she was. Her name was Tenue Sarika. She also had a family name that was common in his world, and black hair, one of the signs. Hikaru went on to explain that her soul rank was too high. It was all too suspicious. If she wasn't in that party, he would have tried to talk to her. Livia asked what the chances were that she didn't know about her. Hikaru said that, honestly, he didn't even know. Gloria awkwardly said that he had a lot in common with her. Hikaru replied that he didn't care. He had her. Gloria blushed at the guy's words. Hikaru confidently said that he knew what to do now. The 4 Eastern Stars were going to give them real help. The guy continued saying that they would hold off the monsters until everyone evacuated. They would also need to stay in the village. Livia screamed that yes, he was right. They would protect the village. Hikaru said that, not only that, they had other tasks. Livia looked at the guy in surprise. He said they would defeat the floor boss. Livia asked in shock how he was going to do that. Hikaru said to her to think for a while. The mysterious forest is a dungeon where a bunch of different monsters live, and they are all controlled by a boss. He's located in the very depths of the dungeon. Livia screamed angrily. That he really? Hikaru interrupted her and answered that yes. He would go to him alone. The girl screamed that this was not possible. It was too dangerous. He could die. Hikaru started waving his arms and asking her to calm down. He asked her if she thought it was his style to pick one target and destroy it alone. The girl screamed loudly for him to take her with him. He said no. Her attacks will be noticed immediately, but he has hidden ones. Livia sadly asked him to promise her that if there was even a 1% chance that it was beyond his powers, he should immediately return. Hikaru smiled and replied that it was fine. The girl laid her head on his chest and said that if he did not return, she would follow him into the dungeon. Hikaru hugged the girl and said that everything would be fine. He would definitely come back. Hikaru hid behind a small house and watched the group of adventurers from pond. He saw a girl entering the house. It turned out to be Paula. The girl looked at him in surprise and shouted what Hikaru was doing here. The guy made a sign for her to be quiet. Hikaru asked her if he could talk to her. Paula answered yes, of course. The guy brought her to Livia. Hikaru introduced her to Paula and said that she was a member of his party. Livia said that she was pleased to meet him. Paula screamed in surprise that she was such a little girl. Hikaru angrily screamed for her to be quiet. Otherwise they would be heard. Hikaru told the girl that he would be forced to leave the village. So could she help with food for a few days? Hikaru handed her a bag of money and said he would pay. Paula blushed and screamed that she would not take it. He had saved her life, twice. Hikaru replied that at least as an expense for the church. Hikaru asked if she was the one buying the food. Paula awkwardly replied that she was, but the guy interrupted her by shouting for her to take the money. Paula resisted, but took it anyway. The girl blushed and awkwardly said that thank you very much. Father will be very happy. Hikaru told her that he had one request. He wanted to ask that it be fulfilled. Hikaru asked her if she could not tell others that Livia was here. Paula asked in surprise why not. Livia said with tears in her eyes that she was actually very afraid of men. Livia sadly added that it was connected to the past, except for Hikaru. She couldn't talk normally to anyone. Paula anxiously answered that it was good. She didn't have to talk anymore. Hikaru looked at the girl and thought that she was really acting out. Livia answered Paula that she was really acting out. Livia answered Paula that she was very grateful to her for helping her. Hikaru thought that she could hide in the church now. The boy told Paula that he relied on her. The girl confidently replied that yes, he could trust her. Someone shouted loudly that the scouts had returned. Paula ran towards the crowd. The girl shouted that she would step away for a minute. Hikaru nodded his head in agreement. Sarah told the people that the enemies were targeting Menarch, about 100 in number. More than half were a branch man, a leaf monster, a forest bat, and a wandering bee. The boy put his hand on his friend's shoulder and said that it would be easy. Hikaru watched the entire conversation. He thought that it was true that the named monsters were only G and F rank. The guy continued to reason that this is the case if there are many of them and one enemy. If there are more monsters, then it is already dangerous. Sarah told the people that there was a small basilisk and a wooden bat left. The girl added that there was a torrent and a lost man. The guy with the bandage said in horror that it turns out there is a D rank too. If there are dozens of them, it will be difficult. A man with a bandage on his eye approached them and confidently said that everything will be fine. They'll take them. Soluz told him she planned to take the torrent and the lost man. The man yelled at her to give them the job. He didn't know if they were B or C ranks. They could handle this one themselves. The Wildhorn party will take on this task. The men began to leave. Pia screamed angrily. How dare they talk to soldiers like that? Paula asked anxiously what they would do. Soluz replied that they would go too. Soluz added that the villagers would be left with them then. They would be calmer with them. Paula said that she understood. The girl saw off the group of heroes. Paula told her friends they had to go. Pia remained motionless. Paula told her they had to go. Pia said it was just a nightmare. She asked Paula if she didn't think men were really that stupid. Paula said maybe some were, but not all. Pia asked what she was talking about, her Hikaru, what she saw in that pretty face. Paula screamed angrily that he had saved him. Pia answered that he was strange. Then with the goblins, he came out of nowhere, and he dealt with everyone so easily. Pia added that she had done the same thing that time. She asked how he could enter a room that was on fire. Maybe he wasn't an adventurer after all, and they should be wary of him. Polo wanted to answer harshly, but Priscilla screamed at them to stop. Priscilla came between them and asked if they were going to fight over someone. Paula said sadly that she was asking for forgiveness. Pia said that she knew. Priscilla said that was good. They should get down to business. Paula said that yes, she was right. Hikaru and Livia watched as the three girls headed to the village. The boy smirked and said that they didn't like him. Livia yelled angrily that it was so rude. She didn't like her at all. Hikaru laughed awkwardly. The boy said that it was time for them to go too. The men fought with different monsters. The leader shouted to his man that he trusted the big monster to him. The man used the flame wall spell. The leader laughed loudly and said that they were such weaklings, but he would save up some money from these monsters. Hikaru and Livia sat on the grass and watched the adventurers. The men were killing monsters and laughing happily. The leader told his men that they should move on. Everyone agreed. Hikaru said with a smile that it was interesting. They could watch them for a while. Livia asked the boy with interest if the adventurers would be able to defeat everyone. Hikaru thought about it and replied that the problem was just beginning. He pointed his finger at a man running out of the forest screaming. The man shouted loudly that they had to run. They were attacked by a torrent, a huge tree with eyes. The monster began to attack people and quickly defeat them. The leader asked them why they couldn't figure it out. He told his friend to use magic. Livia asked if they could handle it. Hikaru said, probably not. The one to watch out for here is this monster. The magician used the spell Flaming Blade. The tree began to burn. The chief said it was easy. They did it. The man asked, that's right. The tree took the form of a man and grabbed the man. He raised it to his mouth, but someone shot him in the arm. It was Sarah. She asked with a smile that they couldn't do it without their help. She added that it was good that they arrived on time. The girl approached the gang leader. The men angrily said that it was bad luck that they were the ones who saved them. The girl told him that their fighting style was purely for show. At this rate, his comrades would die. Sarika stood in front of the men and protected them with magic. Solyu began to defeat the monsters with his sword, and Shufi began to heal the wounded. The leader shouted that they had come here on a mission. They had done nothing wrong. Sarah answered with a smile that, of course, if they successfully complete the task. The leader asked through clenched teeth what happened to the lost men. The girl answered that she shot an arrow at him and he went away. Sarah looked at the forest and asked that this was the end of the first stage of their monster-slaying mission. The men were searching the forest for magical fossils. One of the men pulled out a ball and shouted that he had found a magical stone. His friend replied that it was nothing special. The monsters in the dungeons had a core. They left behind stones like these. The man shouted joyfully that they would gather them all. At that time, a monster was watching them, hiding behind a tree. A guy was walking towards him, looking for stones. The guy started digging in the ground when he heard a scream. He screamed in shock. What was happening? The scream stopped, and he said, did he imagine it? Hikaru defeated this monster so that it wouldn't hurt anyone. He said that it wasn't mimicry, but rather a blockage of perception. Got caught in life detection and magic detection. Hikaru added with a smile that this is what D-rank monsters are like. He picked up the magic stone that the monster dropped. Hikaru put it in his pants pocket. Hikaru said that the number of enemies had increased. He headed into the depths of the forest, saying that it was time for him to get to work and that he would try to complete it as quickly as possible. Akiru entered the dungeon. He raised his head up and said that it was already night outside, but it was as bright as day here. He thought that this was the influence of the dungeon. The guy happily thought that he was now in the dungeon. His very first trip. Hikaru started walking forward saying that the wall was translucent, and therefore the perspective was crazy. The guy added that this is the reason why the dungeon is called mysterious. Hikaru heard a noise and saw 3 small basilisks running around the dungeon. He hid and waited for them. Hikaru took out a knife and thought that this was just what he needed. He would try it. Its throwing attack was Z. To use it, you had to throw the knife. He threw the knife, and it hit the basilisk's eye. The monster fell and died. The other basilisks began to run away screaming. Hikaru was surprised to think that he had killed it in one go. If you attack an enemy and he doesn't notice it, the attack will immediately become fatal. If the attack was made unnoticed in relation to the flying object, the enemy will be instantly killed. He knelt down. The boys said that because of the throw and muscle mass, the attack was strong. Hikaru thought that there was something else he wanted to try. He confidently said that everything was still ahead. Paula listened to the conversation of people. The man said that the monsters had appeared again. His friend answered angrily that he was serious. He thought that he could rest. Paula went to her friends. Priscilla asked her what had happened. The girl replied that they did not think the monsters were becoming more persistent. Pia replied that they did, but that there were 4 eastern stars and everything would be fine. Paula said that if this continued, things would get tough. Pia asked angrily that she did not believe in Seleucus' power. Paula answered awkwardly that it was not about that. They had to fight and be on guard day and night. This could not go on forever. Pia shook her head and said she was right. Paula said they were holding out for now, but she still thought it would be better for everyone to evacuate. Pia said she would agree with her words about the situation. Pia saw a man and told her friends that her father was there. The girl told her father to gather everyone. They were starting the evacuation. Paula screamed that it was impossible. It was obvious to anyone that with such an attitude, the offer would not be accepted. The elder asked her, didn't she say that everything would be under control? Pia screamed loudly that no, they were just getting in their way. One of the men said, that's how it is. So Solus is one of those knights who think that civilians will be a hindrance. Pia angrily asked what he just said. Paula covered herself with her friend and shouted at the headman that everything was wrong. The man said that they don't know when it will end and whether they can fight forever. He added that if they destroy monsters, they can get money. Then they should call adventurers for this task. Paula answered that no one is responding. The village chief understands this very well. The man replied that yes, of course he understood, but that did not mean that they could abandon their gardens, which their ancestors and they themselves had tended. The elder left, saying that he would stay here. He had nowhere to go. Paula looked sadly after him and thought that even in such a situation he chose to stay. She looked at the other people and continued to reason that the others also realized that staying here would be condemning themselves to death. Even if they ran away now, they would be left without money and would come to the same end. The girl added that this was why the village chief did not tell them to leave. It's the same as if he told them all to die here, and even knowing that, Pia said loudly that something was wrong with them. He started to speak badly about Seleucus. Personally, she refuses to die here. Paula grabbed her friend by the sleeve. She asked loudly why he was saying that. Pia screamed that she was in pain. Pia screamed that the girl understood that her father was suffering. She looked at her in surprise. Paula screamed that the Pia she knew had always been good to her father and knew what work meant to him. Pia said her friend's name in shock. Paula cried and said that they must not give up. They must now, as adventurers, think of a way out of the situation to protect their people. Priscilla put her hand on Paula. The girl screamed loudly that she was asking for forgiveness. Paula started running away, screaming that she would go and calm down. Pia tried to stop her, but her friend didn't listen to her. Polia was crying in her room. She wondered what she was doing. After all, she herself asked Pia to persuade the headman. The girl continued to reason that she was guilty of not predicting Pia's behavior, and even yelling at her. Pola sadly said that it was simply terrible. She heard someone knock on the door. He shouted that breakfast was ready, time to go down to the dining room. Paula thought that she should take the food to Livia. The girl shouted that she would be there in a moment. She left the room and saw a man. The girl awkwardly said that nothing had happened. Everything was fine. The man answered that he understood everything. He wanted her to listen to him. Paula asked what he wanted to tell her. The man said that she was born in this village and trained as a pastor. He did not want to pressure her, but he wanted to know something personal. The man asked that she had matured a lot since leaving the village. She had met someone special. Paula blushed and cried out in embarrassment. What did he mean? The man was right. He was afraid that she would change for the worse, but he was glad that she had met the right man. The girl blushed and called him father. The man started to leave with Paula. He said with a smile that now they should go and eat. The tomato soup was getting cold, The girl smiled happily. Sarah fell on the mattress in the tent. She screamed loudly that she was very tired and wanted to sleep. Sarika told the sad girl how it was to want to sleep. She had been on duty for 3 nights in a row. Sarah mumbled that she had overexerted herself, but she was scared. The adventurers who had been entrusted with the eastern and southern sides. They said there were no dungeons there, so don't look. Sarah added that if it weren't for Sarika, Sarah replied that there were traces of fire to the east. There were ashes there, too. She asked if this wasn't her doing. Sarika replied that she didn't even go to the east. She didn't need to go there. There was no order. Sarah asked then who did this. The girl screamed that she would go and look again. Sarika loudly told her to stop. She would go with her. They came to the battlefield. Sarika looked around the area. Sarah asked her what it was. Sarika answered that it was spirit magic, and the attack level was very high. Sarah looked at the ground and said that there were several of them all over the area. Sarika asked Sarah if she could tell from the ashes what kind of monsters they were. Sarah pointed at the pile of ashes and shouted that this already looked like a torrent. She said that she was very interested. Sarah asked what rank the mage was if he was capable of such a thing. Sarika answered that he was capable of such a thing. Sarika answered that he was definitely above Dranks. You could even say Brank. Sarah asked her that she could do the same. The girl happily shouted that, of course. Sarah patted her on the head. Sarika said that there was a spirit mage in the village. If he was an ally, then great. Sarah smiled broadly and replied that she would like to hope so. Sarika said it was obvious. If not, the monsters would have attacked the village by now. Sarah said it was true. She should thank him later. The girl asked how he was hiding. Sarah thoughtfully said she wanted to see this man. Livia was watching them. She was hiding behind a large rock. Livia said that she had been found out. She thought that of course she knew that the adventurers were fighting in the north and west, but she didn't know anything about the east and south. But at least there were no problems here now. She could go and rest. She came out of hiding. The girl thought sadly about her boyfriend. Livia pulled herself together and confidently said that he was fine. After all, he had promised that he would definitely return. At this time, Hikaru found a ladder. He started to go down, saying that it was so convenient to move around, he didn't know that such a place existed in the dungeon. Hikaru thought that, in general, a dungeon is a place that eats adventurers, and thus grows. Hikaru heard strange sounds. He said angrily what would happen this time. He hid behind the wall and began to watch as a huge dragon came out, who looked very angry. The guy thought that the wyvern was Sea Crank, and it was huge. It was also stated that it was a small wyvern, but quite dangerous, located on the 2nd floor. However, if it was written that it was Sea Crank, then even the 4 eastern stars could handle it. The wyvern fell, blood pouring from its leg. Hikaru said with a smile that he was finished, was able to defeat him with the help of stealth and killing skills. He remembered and angrily shouted that this was bad luck. Hikaru thought that the conditions in the dungeon were unusual for him. When he destroyed monsters in the forest, he immediately felt a replenishment of strength, but here there was no such thing. He, of course, assumed that there would be few such monsters in the dungeon, with the help of which he would gain strength. He said that perhaps the quality and quantity of the soul is needed to raise the level. Hikaru continued to say that there should still be something left, at least something. The guy found a stone and looked at it carefully. He said hesitantly that it was a ruby. The guy thought that you can get it by destroying monsters in the dungeon. These are magic stones. They can be used to make jewelry as well as weapons. He remembered Freya's expression. Hikaru happily said that Freya's reaction was funny. Suddenly, the walls and floor started shaking. Hikaru screamed in fear. What was going on? It was over, and Hikaru wondered what had just happened. If they were monsters, they weren't Sea Crank. He went towards Minerka, but Libya was there now. Hikaru ran towards the exit, thinking that he had to make people laugh or it would be too late. However, was it true that if he defeated the dungeon boss, all the monsters would disappear? The action moves to the village. The girl sleeps peacefully in her bed. A strong wind arose in the village, and the monster roared loudly. Everyone stared at him in shock. Livia came out of the house and loudly asked what the noise was. She saw a huge monster with wings. Hikaru shone the flashlight on the passage. He said that it was a staircase. The guy thought that it was the 5th floor. Without lighting, he could not go further. Hikaru scratched his head and said, "Who said that there are only 5 floors here?" He looked at his stats and thoughtfully said that there were only 3 points left. The guy thought that rank C was a wyvern. He had defeated all the monsters he had encountered along the way. Rank C was an executioner, but he didn't know what the future held for him. Hikaru said that safety is paramount. It would be better to activate these 2 points. The guy started to go down the stairs, saying that it was time for him to go down. The guy said that, by the way, isn't the dungeon a place where he has to go through various tests in the form of riddles in order to move on? Hikaru stopped in front of 2 different caves. He said that it was just a normal labyrinth. By defeating monsters, he would get gems. The guy added with a smile that he, as an adventurer, should try. He saw a light at the end of the stairs and began to quickly descend. Hikaru asked in surprise that there was electricity here. The guy entered the room. Hikaru thought the ceiling was the same as the first floor. But why was it light here? After all, there was no light at all on the 5th floor. Hikaru turned his head and saw a large dragon sleeping. He started to approach with the thought that it really was a dragon, and also that it was actually the boss of the dungeon. The dragon opened his eyes and loudly asked who he was. He roared like a dragon, and the guy flew back and hit the wall. He got up and thought that he did it just with his voice, and he could still talk. The guy thought in shock that no. What was more important was how he found out about him. Could it be that hiding wasn't working? Hikaru exhaled and thought that he needed to calm down to be cool. If he lost his cool, he wouldn't be able to handle hiding. The guy hid and thought that everything was fine. He couldn't see him. Then why did he shout, "Is it really intuition?" If so, then he has it at the highest level. But for now, he has lost sight of it. Hikaru continued to reason that if he came closer, the dragon would detect him immediately. But what should he do? The boy thought in surprise that he had a plan. The boy used a magic detection spell. Hikaru saw hundreds of threads in front of the dragon. He thought, that's what it was. If he touched a thread, it would react immediately. In that case, he will die immediately. Hikaru continued to reason that the blocking of magic is 4. If it changes to 5, will there be an effect? Although, even if it is a thread of magic, it does not mean that it is for its detection. The guy added that perhaps even just life or thread is emphasized on completely different criteria. The dragon raised his head up. Hikaru followed his gaze. There was a large hole in the ceiling. The dragon in the village spread its wings. Salu screamed loudly that he would attack. Everyone take cover. The dragon screamed loudly. Salus asked her friends if they were okay. Sarika said they were fine. Sarah, with tears in her eyes, screamed that her ears hurt. Salas shouted that those who were conscious could be divided into groups to help. The man with the bandage asked what would happen to her. The girl answered that they would detain him. The man shouted that he understood everything. The dragon said that this was the decision she had made. She asked the dragon how he spoke to them. The monster answered that he was able to speak, even in the language of people. The dragon told her that she was mistaken if she thought he would pity her. Solus asked that he was a dungeon monster. However, there was no dragon nest nearby. No one had seen him. The dragon replied that it was like this. He was a white dragon, the strongest of dragons. And of course, there was also a black dragon. Solus thought that meant another one would show up. The dragon asked that she would not attack. Her sword was just a decoration. Solus answered that it would not. This sword had felt the blood of many dragons. The dragon answered that they would see. Solos yelled to her friend that they were using Plan B. Sarika yelled that she understood. Sarah replied that she... Okay. The girl started running away. Solus pulled out her sword. With her weapon, she deflected the dragon's flames. The people screamed in shock as they were struck by Solus's power. The dragon said that this sword... Solus replied that she had already said that the blood of the dragon was not new to this sword. This weapon is a blade of white ray. One of the men shouted that he had never seen anything like it. His friend replied that she had used it before. The man shouted that those swords were for small sacrifices. He added that if we were to talk about the 4 eastern stars, then of course they corresponded to a weapon called the Blade of the White Ray. So she will fight with all her might. His friend asked what made him so dangerous. The man replied that they say about this sword that it can cut through anything. Such things do not fall into the hands of just anyone. Solus exhaled and thought that she had to figure out how to get out of this. She could cut the fire, but it was unknown how far it would reach. She had to save time, so that there would be as little damage as possible. The girl continued to reason that she would not win by fighting him directly. Here, one must keep one's distance. Solos asked the dragon what had happened. She said that if he thought that was all, she could show something else interesting. The dragon replied that this was how it was. She wanted to detain him. At that time, people were hiding in their homes. The monster said that of course he knew she was capable of more, but he was not a fool to fall for her tricks. Selous screamed angrily at him to stop. The dragon released a column of fire into the house where the people were. They began to scream loudly. The monster said that he was very interested in watching this. Selous looked at him angrily. She screamed that he shouldn't do that. They kill living creatures when they need food, but to do it for your own amusement is disgusting. The monster replied that she was wrong. For him, they are not even living beings. His purpose is to kill people. He was freed and set free. That's why he came near. The dragon was destroying another house. Saikyou screamed at him to stop. She thought that the monster only aimed to destroy people. All she can do is fight. She continued to angrily reason that she would draw his attention to herself. She will show him that there is a man standing before him who can defeat him, and she will do it. Solos began to approach her. The dragon said that if she had already decided to attack, so be it. He would become her opponent. The monster released a column of fire at her. Solos blocked the blow with her sword. They began a fierce struggle. The girl deals another blow to the enemy. The dragon freezes for a second. Then his heart-rending roar is heard in the air. Selous said that she was able to cut off the dragon's hand. The girl looked at the dragon and thought that she had underestimated the dragon's scales. The next blow would be heavy. The dragon angrily told the girl that he would not forgive her for this. Selous smiled and thought she had gotten his attention. Plan B meant retreat. The rest of us helped the others evacuate. Solos took a fighting stance and thought that all she could do was stall for time. Pia stood with all the people from the village. She joyfully shouted to Paula that she was safe. Pia told her father that she was leaving everything to him. The man asked what that meant. The girl confidently shouted that she would fight Selous and they would defeat the dragon. The father shook his head and said that defeat the dragon. What nonsense she was talking. Pia screamed that he was delirious right now. The girl continued to scream that Selous was the team leader. She could handle him. Sarah came up to her and said that most likely not. Tia asked worriedly what Selous was doing now. Sarah said that she chose to retreat so that they would have more time to escape. Tai said sadly, "What is it?" Sarah laughed and said that they are people too, and now she went to help Selous in the fight. The man on the tower rang the bell and shouted that there was an emergency. The man shouted that monsters were attacking the village. Sarah grabbed her head and said angrily that this was bad luck. She started running away screaming for everyone to go away. Finally, she shouted for them to hurry. Father sat down on the grass and exhaled tiredly. He said that he did not think that the monsters would attack at the same time as the dragon. Pia asked what he was sitting, and the others too. The men were sitting next to their father. The girl angrily asked that they hadn't heard what Sarah had told them. The father loudly answered that they wouldn't run away. Pia screamed loudly that she didn't understand what he was talking about. Is that why Selous was fighting now? Father replied that he had already said that. They would all end up dead anyway. He added that then their place of death is here. They have to be here. If Pia wants to run, they are not holding her. Father loudly told her to go already. Pia clenched her fist and screamed angrily, "Okay." She would do it. She will help Selous because she can't just leave everything like that. And her father is actually just a coward. Her father looked after her in shock. Paula sat down next to the man and said that Pia was probably crying. The man replied that he thought so too. She hadn't changed. The father added that since childhood, when they argued, she would scream that he was a fool and then run away. After that, she would not talk to him for 3 days and be offended. The man turned to the girl. The man began to cry and asked Paula if she could catch up with her and run away with her. Today would be their end, but they did not want to leave their village. The father smiled sadly and said that Pia would most likely not speak to her again. After all, 3 days had to pass since the quarrel again. After all, 3 days had to pass since the quarrel. Holy looked at the man carefully and rose from the grass. She told the elder and the others to listen carefully. Paula said that this morning Pia had told them to run away, but they had not agreed and had not listened. The girl continued to say that, saying that they knew how to grow tomatoes and that they had nothing to do in another place where there would be no garden. Then her father told her that they could only be themselves in the end. Her father nodded his head in agreement. The elder replied that it was all true. They were not capable of anything else. Paula asked what that meant. That one could think in another direction. Paula shouted loudly that the place where they lived was Menark. Everyone looked at the girl in surprise. The elder asked with interest what she meant. The girl screamed that Menark is not Menark because he is here. Long ago, there was a forest here, but they made it a place for growing food. Paula continued to shout that wherever they went, they would remain themselves. The place where they were was Menark. The elder could not believe her words. Paula asked loudly that they couldn't do the same thing somewhere else. After all, everyone in their village already knew how to grow tomatoes. The girl continued shouting that if there was no garden, they could create one, just like their ancestors had done. She won't let them tell her they can't do it, Paula added, because even she was once a coward, but now she's facing monsters. Priscilla stood up from the grass and began to applaud. She was joined by Paula's father, who also applauded loudly. The man said that after all, how children grow up so fast. He thought she was still a child. The man asked that after her words, they could not sit idly by. The villagers began to look at each other to see what the others thought. The elder stood up and said that if they all died, why not try? The elder told Paula that her words had reached them. It is not the land that builds a village, but the people who live on that land. Paula replied that her father had once told her these words, how long ago that had been. The elder stroked the girl and said with a smile that he did not think that she would make him remember them. The girl asked what it meant. The man interrupted her and said that yes. The man turned to the villagers and shouted loudly for them to listen to him. They are starting to move now. They are letting the women and children through first. He continued shouting for the men to split up and help the others. And now they are starting. Hikaru looked at the dragon, who didn't notice him because of the spell. The boy thought about what to do. Returning to the 5th floor and coming here again was not an option. It would be better to retreat then. Maybe he should run away. He continued to reason that he promised her that he would return if he realized that not everything was guaranteed. The boy opened the characteristics and thought that he was asking for forgiveness from Livia. Hikaru thought that he couldn't run away now. He had to check something. There are threads only at the entrance, and then there is space. If possible, you just need to not touch them. The guy began to carefully make his way between the threads. He thought that he could balance a maximum of 20. If such stability already exists on one, then what will happen to 20? Hikaru carefully jumped to safe areas. The boy crouched and thought tiredly that it was the dragon who owned the dungeon. He continued to reason that the monsters of this dungeon were easy to defeat, using the method of finding the center of concentration of their magic. Therefore, he dealt with them in one blow. The guy walked up to the dragon and started scanning it. He thought he had to find its weak point. It had to be somewhere on top and in the center. Hikaru saw the weak points. He thought happily that it was the brain and heart. But magic also flowed in the neck. Even if you try to attack, it will only be here. Hikaru struck the dragon's neck, causing it to roar loudly in pain. The boy was thrown back by the force of the roar. He fell to the ground and groaned in pain. The dragon angrily asked him how he dared to do such a thing. Hikaru thought the monster had hit his eardrum. The dragon started aiming towards Hikaru, who had touched the threads. He thought angrily that this was bad luck. The dragon fired, but the boy managed to move away from the place where the dragon felt him. The monster asked that he felt his presence, but where is he? Hikaru thought, is this possible? He touched himself to check that everything was okay. The guy thought that the bones were okay. The main thing. Nothing was broken. It was already good that he understood how to hurt his scales. But why couldn't he do more damage? Hikaru thought in surprise that it was probably when the pain reached his brain. He perceived it as an attack from someone. That's why the concealment didn't work, and the killing effect didn't work. He continued to reason that time must pass before the realization of pain comes to him. It is necessary to strike when he does not yet understand. And now his exit has come. Hikaru walked into a shop with various weapons and artifacts. The man happily told the boy that he had made a sample of the weapon he had asked for. Hikaru thanked him. The man gave him the weapon and said that here it is. The man added that at least he could defeat someone bigger than him with this thing. Hikaru looked at the dragon and thought that it wouldn't mind being his guinea pig for a while. The dragon said that as soon as Shiro left the lair, an uninvited guest appeared here. Hikaru wondered in surprise what kind of Shiro. Could it be that the crack in that ceiling? Hikaru continued to reason that, before coming here, he noticed someone's huge figure in the sky. It turns out that another dragon lives here. If it can fly, it will easily find the settlement. Hikaru thought angrily that Libya was there now. The attacks of these monsters have a wide area of coverage, and no matter how hard you try to hide from them, if they notice even one person nearby, they will not hesitate. The boy approached the dragon with a knife and thought that he was using magical stealth. Its main target is the heart. The dragon began to turn its head to see the guy. He asked the guy who came close to him what he was doing. Hikaru stabbed him in the heart. The dragon screamed loudly, and then smoke came out of his mouth. Hikaru looked at his body and said that the blade exploded. When the trigger located on the shaft of the weapon is pressed, the blade separates and magically explodes after 1 second. The guy smiled and said that if he did the same thing in the neck area, it would not have any definite effect, but it was simply unrealistic to survive after a heart explosion. Hikaru sat down on the ground and said that he was very tired. He could rest a little. He looked at the pile of ash that appeared after the dragon's death. The guy said tiredly that there really was no time for that now. He picked up a black stone and asked what kind of stone it was. Maybe it was precious. Hikaru looked at the big door and said that he heard that this dragon was the boss here, but it seemed like the dungeon had another master. Hopefully his friend would be much smaller than the black dragon himself. The village was ablaze. People were running and shouting what to do. If they couldn't escape, there would be trouble. A man shouted that they couldn't leave the rest of the village. They told him that they couldn't be saved. The leader of the group shouted that there were women fighting a dragon. Let them follow him quickly. They asked him where and why. The man loudly answered that they would deal with those monsters outside. They could become a hindrance in the fight. The group of men stopped and stared at the monsters in surprise. The guy fell to his knees and said in horror that these were small wyverns. They would all die. Livia came up to them and said that there were only 3 jokes. Was that really a problem for them? The chief shouted angrily that she would understand when she saw it. He asked in surprise who this girl was. Livia raised her hands above her head and said that she would leave everyone else to them. The girl screamed loudly that she was asking the spirit to hear her call. She wanted every living being, everything on this earth to burn in his flames. The men looked at this girl in shock. The leader saw the magic circle and said in surprise that he had never seen such a big magic pentagram. Livia didn't pay attention to him. She had to finish the spell. Livia spoke for the spirit to dance and sing in praise of her great power, so that the sky and the mortal earth would shake. Let it burn now. Blessing of hellfire. All the wyverns were burned by Livia's spell. The men were speechless from shock. The girl pulled up her hood and said that they would handle the remaining change themselves. The boss recovered from his shock and shouted for her to stop, but Livia had already left. One of the guys asked, "It seems they can go now." The main guy answered that yes, they will kill all the monsters. Solus continued to fight the dragon at this time. He continued to resist desperately. Sarah and Sarika joined her. She ran up to them, shouting that they had taken all the wounded out of here. Solas, breathing heavily, said that she thanked her. She should leave too. Pia decided to watch for a while. Solus hit the dragon on the leg and thought that his wound was instantly healing. She cut the flames with her sword and thought that he didn't have a clear plan of action. The main thing now was to hold out until help arrived. The girl noticed a man. It was Paula, who made a hand sign. Solus smiled and thought, great. All the villagers had been successfully evacuated. But there was still a tough battle ahead. Solus thought that the best option would be to wait until dusk and retreat from the battlefield. However, the kingdom could not ignore monsters of this level. The girl could assemble a team of high-ranking adventurers. If she succeeds, Solus noticed that the dragon was looking at Pola. The girl screamed anxiously at the monster to stop. His opponent now was her. The dragon headed towards Pola. Solus ran after the thought that things were bad. Paula began to shake. She could not move. Pia shielded her friend and took out her sword to defend herself. Paula asked in shock why she was doing this. Pia screamed loudly that she had said she would protect her. The girl ran towards the monster, screaming. The dragon was hit by an arrow shot by Priscilla. The dragon turned towards her and did not notice Pia approaching him, who tried to hit him with her sword. Pia hit him in the leg several times, but she did no harm. The dragon hit her with his hand, saying that she was only in the way. The girl fell to the ground, and 2 huge wounds appeared on her chest, from which blood flowed. Paula looked at her friend in horror and said that this was a nightmare. Saikyou ran towards the dragon, while Sarah, Priscilla, and Sarika attacked the dragon from a distance. The dragon roared loudly, and a strong wind arose from his roar. Saikyou couldn't hold on and fell to the ground. When it was all over, Sarah saw Saikyou lying on the ground. The dragon noticed her and decided to attack with fire. Sarah noticed Priscilla lying next to her. Sarah covered her with her back and took the full impact. She managed to withstand the attack. She spoke heavily to Priscilla to hold on. At that moment, the dragon attacked Sarika. Sarah shouted to her that she was already coming towards her, but the girl was unable to move because of the wound on her leg. Paula tried to stop Pia's bleeding. She screamed at her that everything would be fine. She had the power to heal her wounds. She cries out to the heavens, "Gods, help this mortal soul. Bless her hands. Save her from death." Pia whispered that she should run away from here. Paula continued the spell. She said that this magical power, which is a blessing for them living on this earth, she wants to give to the one who needs it most. A faint light appeared. Paula looked at her hands. She said in horror that no, it hadn't worked. It couldn't be. She could cure her. She had to. Paula whispered for her to run. The dragon headed towards Paula. The girl screamed that it had always been like this. Pia always covered her and protected her, and she healed her time after time. Paula cried and screamed that now. Pia reached out her hand and whispered that she was her best friend. Paula grabbed the girl's hand and screamed that, of course. After all, they had always been best friends. The dragon approached them. Paula told Paula that, even though they sometimes disagreed, however, she and Priscilla have always been and will always be her best friends. The monster lowered its mouth towards them. Livia made a pentagram and cried out loudly, so that the spirit would dance and sing in praise of her great power, so that heaven and earth would shake. The dragon was distracted and didn't notice how Saikyou woke up and stuck her sword into his leg. The heroine tries to catch her breath. The girl asked that he didn't think he could finish her off with just his hysterical scream. The dragon roared loudly again. Saikyou asked loudly what he thought, that was all. The girl thought that the more magic this sword absorbed, the sharper its blade became. The girl thrust the sword deeper and thought that she would try to use it to the maximum. The dragon roared loudly in pain. He directed his mouth at the girl to attack. Sola said that she had bought her a little time. Libby screamed loudly, asking for the blessing of hellfire. A strong column of fire hit the dragon. The monster roared loudly and threw all the girls back. The heroine does not give up. Paula stood up and looked at the smoke that covered the dragon and made it impossible to understand what would happen to him. Paula asked in disbelief that they had won. The smoke cleared and a dragon emerged from it. The girl shook. She couldn't believe that after such a strong attack he could survive. The dragon looked at Paula. The girl looked at her friends and fell to her knees. He hysterically said that this is what it is. Livia said that she was asking the spirit to hear her call. Paula thought that Livia was still trying to hold out in this battle. She continued to attack. The dragon headed towards her. Paula began to pray. She cried out that she was asking the merciful Lord to hear her prayers. She was asking to save their souls, the villagers and those who were valiantly fighting to save them. She was asking to help them all. Paula thought that it was too late for them to make it. The girl decided not to give up and cried out that the Lord is merciful. The dragon stopped and fell headless. Paula asked in shock what just happened. Hikaru stood next to the monster's body. He said with a smile that it seemed he had managed to arrive in the village on time after all. Paula was surprised to think that it was Mr. Hikaru. But how did he appear here? The boy exhaled and thought that when he saw the state of the village, he immediately began to think about what to do next. He ran through the forest and thought that the black dragon could only be killed by piercing its heart. In turn, if you cut the head of another dragon from its heart, the effect would be exactly the same. Hikaru continued to reason that. However, he no longer had the explosive blade. So hitting his heart was no easy task, and reaching his head with such a short sword was even more difficult. The boy ran into the village. He looked around and thought in horror that he was too late. Hikaru turned his head and saw a dragon heading towards Libya. The girl tried to defeat him. Hikaru noticed the dragon's charged scales and thought that if it was possible to break through them, all that was left was to find a weapon. The boy picked up the sword that was lying on the ground. He scanned the monster and thought that no magic threads were found. Hikaru grabbed his sword and ran towards the monster. He jumped up and hit him in the neck. Hikaru looked at the sword with a smile and happily said that he had no idea whose sword it was, but it helped him a lot. He saw Shufi trying to help his friends. The guy thought that it seemed like he couldn't help here anymore. Hikaru noticed the stone and reached out to pick it up. He thought that this magical monster was big enough that Hikaru pulled his hand back and decided that it was best not to touch it. An excited Livia ran up to him. The guy told her that she scared him to death. Livia sadly said that she was asking for forgiveness. The girl said that she only wanted to distract him and then immediately disappear. Hikaru awkwardly asked what she just said, because he didn't hear. Livia noticed blood in his ear and excitedly screamed that something was wrong with his ear. The guy awkwardly said that he would cure it later. The girl stood on her toes and said right into his ear how things were going with the dungeon. Hikaru replied that it was all over for him. Not to say that everything went perfectly, but the guy noticed Paula, who was sitting next to Pia. Hikaru asked if she died. Paula started crying and said that she was only trying to protect her. Hikaru replied that it was like this. The guy thought she was protecting her friends with her life. Paula said she couldn't even help her. Pia always saved her, but she couldn't help her. Hikaru thought that he should be able to cure Pia. The boy continued to reason that his skills should be enough to enhance Paula's magic. But he can't let anyone know about it. If the truth about his power comes out, something terrible could happen. Hikaru looked at Paula, who was crying next to her friend. The guy sat down on the ground and asked what she wanted to help Pia with. He thought that if he left everything as it was now, he would regret it for the rest of his life. Polly replied that, of course, what kind of questions are these? She and Pia had been friends since childhood. She was her best friend. Maybe sometimes she was too selfish and did rash things, but she never wanted to hurt her. Hikaru told her that Pia could be cured, but only if Paula agreed to give up her life in exchange. She won't die in the usual sense of the word. The guy added that instead, she will have a secret that she will have to keep for the rest of her life, without the right to share it with anyone. He can help, only she can promise him this. Paula wiped away her tears and confidently shouted that if it would help save Pia, she was ready to sacrifice her life. Hikaru smiled and told her to close her eyes. The next time she opened them, her life would never be the same. Hikaru thought that, as a rule, a person is considered a healer if his healing power level is 2 units. In hospitals, you can meet healers with a maximum of 4 units of this skill, but not higher. The guy increased Paula's level and thought that she was now level 8. He thought that he just needed to believe. Because once upon a time, faith saved him too. Paula beamed, and Hikaru thought that he understood Livia's feelings, but they had to believe in Paula. Hikaru continued to reason that she wanted to save her friend so much that she sacrificed her own life. Her intentions were pure. He will believe in Paula, just as he once believed in Livia. Hikaru added that she was willing to give herself up in exchange for a falsely accused, innocent man. Paula placed her hands on Paula's body, which began to glow. Hikaru thought that 8 units should be enough. Pia's wounds were completely healed. Paula swayed a little, and the guy grabbed her. He said that it seemed she had overdone it a bit, and that was why the magic had ricocheted. Paula replied that he had told her to try her best, but even so, Pia, the girl lay motionless when suddenly she began to breathe. Paula joyfully cried out that she was completely cured. Hikaru replied that was great. Paula hugged the guy and screamed that she was very grateful to him. They fell to the ground together. Hikaru screamed loudly that he was in pain and that he should let go. The guy added that he was also hurt, by the way. Paula jumped away from him and screamed that she was asking for forgiveness. Hikaru stood up and said that one way or another, she had to promise not to tell anyone about this power. Paula replied that she could cure him too. The guy asked if she had any mana left. She answered loudly that she could handle it. The girl put her hands on Hikaru's back. The guy looked at his hands and thought, wow, he's almost completely recovered. Paula said tiredly that she thanked him very much. She fainted. The girl fell on Pia's chest. Hikaru looked at her with a smile. Livia asked him if he was okay. The guy replied that everything was fine, no problems. Hikaru added that he thought there was a problem. He just wanted to believe in the best, and it happened. Livia confidently answered him so that he knew that she respected his choice. The guy said that he thanked her very much for that. Hikaru awkwardly told Livia that about the problems, there was one. The girl asked with interest what the problem was. Livia asked what he meant by that he had failed to defeat the dungeon master, so he was here now. Hikaru replied that it could be said that way. The dungeon was guarded by a huge white dragon, as tall as a 6-story building. The guy added that there was also a second dragon like that, but a black one. Livia screamed loudly that she understood. So they were taking Pola with them. They would definitely need a healer. Hikaru said no. The black dragon had already been killed. The guy gave her a magic stone and said that he was giving it to her as proof. So, this is their first problem, and it is the owner of the dungeon. The guy asked the girl in surprise if everything was okay with her. Hikaru awkwardly shouted that he swears that before attacking, he made sure that he could definitely defeat him. And he also knew in advance that the dungeon was guarded. And he also wouldn't have gotten into a fight if he wasn't 100% confident in himself. The guy added that it just so happened that the owner of the dungeon was not the black dragon. Hikaru exhaled and said that he was sorry. He just decided to try his luck. Maybe he would succeed. Livia hugged him tightly and said that she was so scared for him. Stop doing reckless things. Hikaru smiled and said he was truly sorry. Livia pulled away and said it was one thing to talk about a threat, but another to actually face it. He was talking about it like nothing out of the ordinary had happened. Hikaru told her it was all because of the blade he had with him. However, they did outline the problem. To solve it, they needed someone who had the curse of the saints. The girl asked what kind of saints. Sarah ran up to Solus, saying that she had managed to reach the entrance to the dungeon and inspect it. No traces of the monster had been found, and the sky was clear. It was quite possible that it was already dead. Solus asked what she meant by the dungeon master. Sarah replied that yes, him. When a dungeon keeper dies, the dungeon itself dies with them. It is entirely possible that the master of this one is either dead or has abandoned it. Solus asked how likely it was that he had abandoned it. Sarah replied that she would say the chances were 0, but based on her experience, that was unlikely. Solus asked what that meant. Someone had killed the owner. Before Sarah could answer, the elder stepped forward. The man said that if the dungeon was cleared, then it would only be a joy to us. The elder said that he didn't even know how to thank her for such a service. Solus interrupted him and replied that it wasn't worth it. The village was destroyed anyway. He said that she should know that there is always good fortune behind misfortune. At least the crops were not damaged, and if there was a harvest, they would be able to rebuild the village. The elder added that at such times, preserving the crops becomes more important than preserving the house, and the only thing more important than the crops is the lives of people. The man thought that, however, there were still quite a few victims. They were not ready for such a large-scale battle, and therefore there was no way to save the villagers. The elder told Solus that, as far as he knew, she and the army had not come here on behalf of the guild. The girl replied that this was true. The man handed her the magic stone. He asked if she could accept this small gift. Solus replied that she could not. The man asked if her refusal was due to the appearance of that mysterious robed sorceress girl. The elder added that he believed she had reasons for hiding her identity. Even if that were the case, they were still heroes who fought bravely against the White Dragon. The man asked that they did not think that the 4 stars of the East did not deserve this gift. Solus took the stone and replied that she had another idea for this magical item. The girl said with a smile that they would sell the ball and split the proceeds equally. Half for them, and the other half would be given to the restoration of the village. Solus says that the girl in the cloak fought valiantly for the village, and it is right to use this reward for the benefit of the locals. The girl asked that the girl would be happy to see this. They will make sure that the money received equally serves for the benefit of the disadvantaged, deprived of family and shelter. The elder bowed and said that he thanked them again. Sarika said angrily that her robe had burned. Shufi laughed and asked with a smile that at least she'd save people. Was that the main thing? Sarah asked what they would do now. Solus answered that she would hunt monsters for a couple of days, and then return to the capital. Sarah agreed. The girl added that it would be nice to take a rest first. Solus said that she agreed. They needed sleep. Sarah wished everyone a good night with a smile. Soyuz looked at the fire and said, "Who is the mysterious girl in the robe?" The girl thought that she also saw a guy heading to this village. "I wonder where he disappeared to. Very curious. Maybe they are missing something." The girl said that nothing could be done about it for now. Livia and Hikaru were climbing a ladder up a tall tree. The girl asked if this was the shortest way. Hikaru said yes. He found it when he was leaving the dungeon. They finally entered the dungeon. Hikaru asked if she was okay. The girl said yes. Her arms were just tired. The guy told her that they would start going down from here. The couple walked deeper into the dungeon. They entered the room. Livia began to examine everything with interest. The girl saw mountains of ash. Livia thought it was true. He had defeated the dragon himself. Hikaru came to the door and said that it was here. The girl screamed that she was coming. They entered a small room. There was a monster under the blanket. Livia asked if it was the dungeon master. The guy answered that it was. When he came here, he was sitting in the corner of the room and shaking with fear. Hikaru added that he wanted to try to talk to him, but when he got closer, he immediately attacked him, so they had to rein him in. Livia replied that this was how it was. The guy went to the next door and said that the same problem was waiting for them ahead. He opened the door and said that they needed to go there. Livia looked in horror at the stairs that led into the darkness. Hikaru took her hand and smiled reassuringly. They went down the stairs. The monster told him that he had returned quickly. Livia asked loudly what it was. The guy said that here they were, and as it turned out, the dungeon master was not afraid of him at all. She can meet a fire dragon. The monster looked at them carefully. When Hikaru first went there, he was attacked by a monster. He killed him easily and left him on the ground. The guy thought angrily, "What kind of nonsense is going on here? This guy is clearly not himself." The ceiling started to crumble a little. Hikaru thought something was wrong with the dungeon. It was losing power. He looked at the monster and thought that this lizard was the master of the dungeon. Hikaru continued to reason that he looked so scared when he came. The guy opened the next door and saw a staircase. He thought there was a passage there. He turned on the lights and started to go down. Hikaru said that it was worth examining it too. Someone said that a whole 100 years had passed since then, although no. More accurately, it would be several hundred years. The guy shone a flashlight and saw a huge monster on a chain. The dragon said that so much time had passed that even he, a long-lived man, had become mortally bored with these walls. Hikaru was surprised to think that it was a red dragon. The monster said that all the brave souls who had reached this place, every single one of them, at the mere sight of him, ran away in horror. The dragon added that he was not running away. He was very curious. He was not from this world. The guy continued to reason at these words. Could it be that the owner of the dungeon accidentally stumbled upon him while inspecting the premises and got scared? Hikaru added that over time, simple fear grew into permanent panic, and then he decided to close access to this part of the dungeon. The guy asked who did this to him. The dragon replied that he was asking to break his chains. If he did so, he would be free to ask him for anything he wanted. Be it a rare weapon or treasure ores, he could use any of his whims. The monster added that, however, only one whose heart was touched by the divine blessing could free him from his heavy shackles. Hikaru tried to grab the chain, but his hand went through the metal. He was surprised to think that they were not material. Pola could become a holy man. Hikaru told the dragon that he needed to consult Livia about this. The boy told the girl that it was something like this. The dragon told him that he had returned after all, and if so, could the unfortunate man hope for his help? He told her that he believed that divine blessing in this case meant karma points, also known as holy points, that were displayed on her profile next to her skills. Hikaru continued to say that Livia interrupted the guy and said that everything was fine. She will try. The girl took his hand and said that she had once mentioned that she was ready to sacrifice everything she had for him. Livia added with a smile that he could use her skills as he wanted. She wouldn't say a word. Hikaru blushed and looked at her in surprise. Livia smiled widely, and Hikaru gave her his smile in return. The guy awkwardly said that he was very grateful to her for this. He opened Livia's characteristics. Hikaru thought that her karma level had increased to rank 5. He would start by unlocking willpower. Then he would do the same thing with the Holy Faith skill, and finally unlock holiness. The guy happily said that he found it. Hikaru thought that if after all these manipulations the mark of divine blessings still did not appear, then he would have to ask for help from Paula, whose holiness level was already higher than 4. Hikaru asked Livia to show him her card. The girl gave him her card. Hikaru told the dragon that she had been given a divine blessing from a single pantheon of gods and given the status of a priestess. He asked the monster if this would be okay. The dragon replied that it was worth a try. They had no choice anyway. Hikaru asked the girl that since he agreed to try, maybe she could read the spell. Livia replied that it was fine, no problem. Livia cast a spell on the chains. She said tiredly that it seemed to be giving in, but it required a lot of magical energy. The dragon told her to continue in the same spirit, almost succeeded. Hikaru asked the girl that she was okay. If she can't, don't force yourself. The dragon asked that if she can't even do this, then what is she good for at all? Hikaru looked angrily at the monster and thought that he didn't like it anymore. The chain broke and the dragon roared loudly. Hikaru covered Livia from the loud roar. The monster cried out happily that they did it. The human cubs did it. Hikaru worriedly asked the girl if she was sure everything was okay. The dragon cried out loudly that it was begging her. There was only one chain left. Livia smiled and said that she could handle it. The dragon happily said that he already felt free. Hurry up. Hikaru angrily told him to shut up. Come to think of it, there was no reason for them to drag him out of here at all. Hikaru asked if the dungeon was acting so strangely because he had scared its master. The dragon replied that he had not tried to scare it. He had mysteriously appeared before him. The dragon asked if he had been so scared that the dungeon had also started going crazy. Hikaru exhaled angrily and told Livia that the dragon seemed to be fine here. He could do without freedom. They could leave. The monster screamed that no, they shouldn't leave. The monster asked why they were doing this to him. Hikaru screamed that because of people like him. Hundreds of innocent people had suffered. The guy added that there were many dead among them. The dragon replied that it was so, however, he had never tried to intimidate the current master of the dungeon intentionally. The monster continued to say that he had made the decision to come down here himself and had chosen to be afraid of his own free will. Besides, no one forces people to build settlements right next to their habitats. The dragon added that if they do settle nearby, they consciously take this risk. He promises them that as soon as he leaves here, he will immediately begin to exterminate those who dare to do evil. The monster said that by doing so, he could protect thousands of human children from certain death. She said that as long as he was here, the dungeon would continue to behave restlessly, and sooner or later, it would lead to some tragedy. Personally, she sincerely believed that he would not harm anyone. Hikaru shouted loudly that it was okay, but no nonsense. If she felt that she was not strong enough, it was better to stop. No matter how long it took, she was more important. The guy asked her if she would try to remove the shackles. Livia answered loudly that she would try to remove the shackles. Livia answered loudly that she would try. The girl began to try to remove the chains from the dragon again, but she quickly got tired. Hikaru thought that Paula's help wouldn't hurt them right now. He was still not sure if he could trust her completely. The chain broke into 2 pieces. Livia said tiredly that this was the 4th. The dragon told her to step back. She's done enough already. The monster broke the remaining chains and flew into the air. The dragon said happily that finally someone was able to break these lousy chains. The dragon fired a beam at the ceiling, which pierced it and burst out. Everyone watches in amazement. There is so much light that it can be seen even in the mountains. Solus ran out of the tent and asked in horror what kind of light it was. The man who was patrolling the area responded in shock that the pillar of light was coming from there. The old man watched the light from his window. He said that it seemed to be coming from the direction of the village of Manelka. But what could be shining so brightly there? He continued to reason that it was so bright that it could be seen from such a great distance. He was very interested in what was going on in this village.